Good evening, I'm Judy Woodruff on the NewsHour tonight. On the rise, the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in the U.S. tops 11,000 as the government looks to $1 trillion in aid to stem the economic toll. I sit down with the Secretary of Defense to discuss how the military can help.
We're providing to the states manpower, we're providing medical equipment and supplies. We are going to dispatch our hospital ships, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast.
Then, after panicked shoppers leave many grocery shelves bare, what you need to know about the food supply in a time of crisis. Plus, Yalitza Aparicio, star of 2018's acclaimed film Roma, and now an activist working at the intersection of race and class in Mexico.
Muy difícil.
Yes, it sounds difficult, and it is difficult to change something that people have been used to for years. But that's what it's about. It's about telling people this isn't normal and they shouldn't be used to it.
All that and more on tonight's PBS NewsHour.
Major funding for the PBS NewsHour has been provided by...
On an American Cruise Line's journey along the Mississippi River, travelers explore classic antebellum homes, Civil War battlefields, and historic American towns. Aboard our fleet of Victorian-style paddle wheelers and modern riverboats, you can experience local culture and cuisine and relive American history. American Cruise Lines, proud sponsor of PBS NewsHour.
Fidelity Investments, BNSF Railway, Consumer Cellular, Carnegie Corporation of New York, supporting innovations in education, democratic engagement, and the advancement of international peace and security at carnegie.org. And with the ongoing support of these individuals and institutions. This program was made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
The pace of the pandemic is accelerating across the United States on this first day of spring. Health officials report more than 11,000 cases, up nearly 3,500 in a single day, and at least 168 deaths. As the recorded numbers surge, the U.S. State Department is warning Americans not to go abroad for any reason. Meanwhile, Congress works on a huge economic aid package, and the White House talks of making more medicines available. William Brangham reports.
President Trump today announced that the federal government will speed access to 2 drugs that might help people infected with coronavirus.
We slashed red tape to develop vaccines and therapies as fast as it can possibly be done.
Under the new rules, the Food and Drug Administration will bypass its normal process and rapidly accelerate those and other medications for use. But these new treatments are not immediately available for COVID-19 patients, and they're not considered cures or a vaccine. It's hoped they'll ease symptoms and slow the spread of the virus in people who've already been infected. On Capitol Hill, meanwhile, Congress is working on its 3rd coronavirus relief package. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell.
The point is to help small business endure, help workers keep their jobs, and help both businesses and workers emerge from this ready to thrive.
The bill will include $300 billion for small business loans, a direct cash payment to adult Americans, targeted lending to key industries, and resources for hospitals and health workers who are caring for sick people. But Democrats are again pushing for the bill to prioritize workers over corporations. Minority Leader Chuck Schumer.
We believe that whatever proposal emerges, and it will be bipartisan, that it must be a workers' first proposal.
The Senate is expected to work on the bill throughout the weekend. The urgency comes as unemployment claims are rapidly rising across the country, as industries from restaurants to car manufacturing are closing their doors, putting millions of Americans instantly out of work. In fact, jobless claims spiked to 281,000 last week. That's up from 211,000 the previous week. That's the largest week-to-week rise since the 2008 financial crisis. Back at the Capitol, this pandemic is not just affecting Congress's legislative calendar. Last night, 2 representatives, Mario Diaz-Balart, a Republican from Florida, and Ben McAdams, a Democrat from Utah, said they have tested positive for the virus. Both said they began to feel ill on Saturday night, just hours after they, along with 400 other members of the House of Representatives, voted to approve another coronavirus relief bill. Now, more than 20 members of Congress are self-isolating. And there's some troubling news about who else is falling ill. New data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reveals that young Americans are being sickened in large numbers. The CDC says there have been 508 hospitalizations caused by COVID-19. 38% of them were between 20 and 54 years old. And then nearly half of the 121 patients who were moved to intensive care, those were under 65. But still, the virus is more fatal for the elderly. And it's important to note, the vast majority of infected people have been recovering. In the meantime, COVID-19 continues to take an enormous toll on Italy. 3,405 people have died there, surpassing China as the nation that's lost the most citizens to this virus. And in China today, a major milestone. Officials said that for the first time, there were no new local infections in Wuhan, the original epicenter of the pandemic. President Trump said today he hopes these Chinese numbers are true, but added, who knows?
When you put distance between people through a variety of different ways, you can reduce transmission of the virus.
Caring for and monitoring even
Jennifer Nuzzo is an epidemiologist at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. She believes China's numbers are real, and they're a result of that country's highly aggressive measures to isolate people.
Now, there are other questions about those measures that we have to address, but I think what it shows is that it is possible to, at least for a short period, reduce transmission.
Nuzzo cautions, though, that this is by no means the end of China's outbreak.
The impact of these measures are likely to be temporary, just given the fact that the virus is still circulating in the world. So it's not as though they can just stop once they've reached a certain point.
5,000 miles from China, the continent of Africa is just starting to realize the scope of its outbreak. Several nations closed their borders today, and the WHO's regional head warned that the continent is seeing, quote, extremely rapid evolution. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm William Brangham.
Wall Street had a calmer day by recent standards, at least, as investors reacted to the stimulus measures being taken by central banks. The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 188 points to close at 20,187. The Nasdaq rose 160 points, and the S&P 500 added 11. Now, with more on how the U.S. government is responding to the pandemic, Yamiche Alcindor is at the White House. Lisa Desjardins is on Capitol Hill. Hello to both of you. And Yamiche, to you first. The president did announce today the Food and Drug Administration is going to be fast-tracking some medicines that they hope can make a difference. What do we know about that? And also, what do we know about testing being available to Americans?
Well, it's clear that President Trump is eager to see Americans get the medicine that would be needed to treat coronavirus. That being said, that medicine is far away at this point. The president is saying today that there was medicine, including anti-malarial medicine, that could be given immediately to Americans. But the FDA then, just a couple of hours ago, had to clarify that and say, no, the president's wrong. There is no actual FDA-approved medicine to treat this. But what might happen is that doctors might now be using experimental drugs on patients to try to see if the coronavirus reacts to those drugs. There are some senior officials in the FDA who are worried about that. They say that patients might get harmed, but President Trump is saying we have to cut red tape to get people help. On testing, today the president was asked over and over again, when can every American who needs a test get a test for the coronavirus? But the president did not have a clear answer on that. The other thing, the White House is not clear on whether or not the administration and the country as a whole has enough ventilators to help people. So the healthcare systems and healthcare workers are saying that the system might not be able to care for as many people and that we might be in a situation where there isn't enough equipment. Right now, the White House is saying they're trying their best to do that, to get the equipment needed, but that they don't know at what point that equipment will actually will be taken and be able to give out to states.
And to Lisa, we know just within the last hour, the Senate has released its proposal for the next bill on the coronavirus response. What do we know about what's in it?
Judy, this is the big bill. This is that third bill that we've been waiting for. And in looking over the 247 pages of it quickly, I want to put some highlights out there. First of all, one thing this would do, the Senate Republican plan, give almost every American a $1,200 check. They will be calling it a recovery rebate. That would be $2,400 for families. There's an income cap on that, but for most Americans, they would get that. Also, $208 billion for various industries. That includes $50 billion for the airline industry. Judy, also in this, something Yamisha's been talking about, free testing for the virus for any American. Insurers would be required to cover that. Also, Judy, I read in here what looks to be like a 3-month suspension, potentially, of student loan payments for federal student loans. There is a lot in here. What's important is next what happens is these Republicans will take this plan and negotiate with Democrats. Democrats want more for unemployment insurance. Over the next couple of days, we'll see what happens.
Fascinating how fast it's moving. So, Yamish, what's the reaction there to all this?
Well, the president has been saying over and over again that he wants Americans to get cash fast. Now, the White House has been pushing Republicans on Capitol Hill and Republican senators to get behind the idea of giving more than one check to Americans. So I want to walk through a little bit about what the White House wants to see happen here. And some of this is in the bill, some of it's not. So they want to see two $1,200 checks to Americans, one in April, one in May. Right now, this bill only has one $1,200 check, as well as some other things, including $500 for every child for eligible Americans. The other thing, they do want $300 billion for small businesses. It looks like that made it into the bill, so that's something that they agreed on. The other thing the president said today, he wanted to forbid executive bonuses and stock buybacks. Now, that's something that the president has said he wants to do. He says that if we have to help a company, we don't want to then see CEOs get billions or millions of dollars in bonuses. That's something that the president agrees on with Democrats. There are progressives like Elizabeth Warren who say we don't want to see stock buybacks. The other thing that's interesting today is that the president visited the headquarters of FEMA. That's going to be an agency that's going to be administering a lot of the help to states. We saw governor after governor today in states like Michigan, Illinois, South Dakota plead with the president for help. They were specifically asking for medical equipment. They were also asking whether or not the National Guard would be able to help them out. So what we saw was a number of governors on the phone praising President Trump, saying he was doing a good job, but also saying we need a lot more from the federal government.
So Lisa, if you're coming back to you, I mean, these ideas in the bill you're describing, these are big ideas coming at breakneck speed. How much is known about whether they'll actually work?
Quickly, I'll summarize what people think here. I think we'll be talking about this more on the show in coming days. That idea of a check for Americans, that is usually something that has a multiplier effect across the economy. People buy things with it. But the concern here, Judy, is that the economy is now shutting down. What can people buy? That check in this case, Judy, is really more targeted to help people buy necessities. So that's something they think it can do.
And very quickly, Lisa, we heard in Williams' report 2 members of Congress have already been tested positive for the coronavirus. Others are self-quarantining. What do we know about measures being taken to protect the members of Congress and all the staff?
Well, I'll show you in the last day since the announcement of those 2 positive tests, The House side of the Capitol, we've seen these signs go up on doors, cleaning not required, so that staff could place this if they didn't want a special clean, or if that was a room, I believe, where there wasn't a special concern that any of the members who have tested positive have gone to. They have done a lot of cleaning around this side of the Capitol in areas where they know those members had strong interactions. They've contacted all the members of Congress or staff that had interactions that they think make them vulnerable to the virus. And, you know, the House is shut down, so that's a positive thing. These members haven't been here since last week, but they were here then. As for the Senate, there is rising concern. Reporters, we are keeping our distance as much as we can from senators when we talk to them. There are fewer reporters here now. But the biggest question, Judy, is how will the Senate and House continue to operate? Will they continue to have votes even into next week? And there is a big push on both sides for remote voting. Senator McConnell, as I've reported, has said no. But I will tell you, there's increasing interest in that on both sides. Members of the House especially tell me they don't want to return to the Congress. They want to keep working, but they don't want to come to this building if they can avoid it.
Very interesting. We know in some countries they have adjourned their parliament, so we will watch that. Lisa Desjardins, Yamiche Alcindor, thanks to you both.
Thanks.
And now we turn to the U.S. military and defense community's role in the fight against COVID-19. Late this afternoon, I spoke with Secretary of Defense Mark Esper, who was at the Pentagon. Secretary Mark Esper, thank you very much for joining us. Let's start with COVID-19. We are told the military gearing up in a big way, sending hospital ship, one to each coast, providing hospital beds on land, providing masks and other material. It's a lot. Is it going to be enough?
I think so, Judy. We're putting all of our efforts into this. As you noted, we're providing to the states manpower. We're providing medical equipment and supplies. We are going to dispatch our hospital ships, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast. We are contributing to the effort through our military research labs, where we are working mightily on both a vaccine and therapeutics. So we're doing everything we can to help with this effort and to help protect the American people.
Mr. Secretary, on the military ships, our understanding is that they would be used to handle the overflow of seriously ill patients from hospitals, so that on-land hospitals would work with the COVID-19 patients. Is that right?
Slightly right. So the purpose of these ships, of course, are for wartime use. So they are geared to handle trauma patients. So think of people with head injuries, lacerations, broken bones, those types of things. Based on how the ships are configured, they're not built to handle patients with infectious disease. So what we can do is we can pull a ship into a harbor, we can dock, and we can help either pick up trauma patients from a local hospital, thus freeing up a bed space for patients with COVID-19, or we could help with the overflow of trauma patients in recovery who would come out of the hospital. Again, once again, freeing up bed space for localities to put infected patients into those rooms.
Reserve forces, Mr. Secretary, you've said you've tried to avoid calling them up to the extent it would hurt any vital role they're playing in their communities. So how are you thinking about that in terms of using active duty forces versus the reserves and making that tough decision about whether to pull them out?
Well, it's first important to note that 29 of the states now have activated their National Guard. The National Guard is a very capable force. I served in the National Guard for many years, so I know what they can do. And what I've said with regard to the reservists is this. As we look at activating, whether it's the hospital ships or our field deployable hospitals, one of the challenges we face is that many of the medical professionals that would staff those hospitals could come from the reserves. So we've got to be very conscious as we do this to make sure we're not pulling required medical personnel, professionals out of a civilian role that's needed and putting them into a military role and deploying them somewhere else.
And as you think about the National Guard, we are told that the head of the Guard is saying they shouldn't be nationalized quickly. But could this situation become so serious that that has to happen?
Well, we don't see a need to federalize the National Guard either. What that means is we'd end up pulling them into a national basis. I think the best use of the Guard right now is doing what they are doing, and that is working in what we call a Title 32 status for the governors of their states, and then dealing with the challenges that the governor needs them to deal with at the state and local level. as need be, we can always supplement them with either Federal Reserve troops or active component troops. But again, that's not on the drawing board at this point in time.
And what is the main role right now for active duty troops in the U.S.?
Well, I'd like to say, and I'd like to remind the American people, if not reassure them, that the United States military remains ready and capable to protect the country and defend our interests abroad. And right now, that is our primary mission. We also have all these other capabilities that I mentioned up front that we're providing to the COVID-19 effort. That includes, again, everything from military research on vaccines, on therapeutics, to providing military equipment, medical equipment out of our strategic stockpiles, to making available medical professionals, and to helping out any way a state needs help.
Is there a conflict, Mr. Secretary, between having these service members do their jobs protecting the country and keeping them safe from COVID-19? How are you doing that, number one? And we know that, 81 Defense Department employees are now infected, several dozen service members. How do you look upon keeping them safe at the same time they're doing their job?
It's a very good question. We took very aggressive measures several weeks ago to get ahead of this and stay ahead of it. So, for example, we stopped what we call permanent change of station moves in between overseas and the United States. We ultimately moved that to moves within the United States. We've also put quarantines on people traveling between bases, certainly those traveling home. We've asked people to self-isolate as need be. We've instituted a wide range of procedures across the force, to include here at the Pentagon, where we're exercising a great deal of social distancing. We're wiping down tables and doorknobs. In fact, I do video teleconferences with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and my deputy. So we're taking all types of measures across the force to ensure the protection of our troops and, by the way, our family members and our beneficiaries. And as you noted, we have a few dozen right now who have the virus. Actually, it's 51 uniformed military. I had a chance to talk with a few of them already in the past few days. They're doing well. But we're taking great care to make sure the force is well protected. We're blessed with a young, robust, healthy, fit force that has great medical care. So I'm confident that that they will fare well.
You talked about preparation. I want to ask you about a New York Times story that has come out just today that reports on exercises that were conducted inside the Trump administration anticipating a global pandemic, laying out clearly what the risks would be, but that it all happened many layers down in the bureaucracy, that people at the highest levels of the government, it never demonstrated the sense of urgency that would normally have been expected. So when President Trump said the other day, nobody ever thought of numbers like this report says that, in fact, people in the federal government did know that this was possible. Were you aware of these exercises, Secretary?
Well, I'm not familiar with that report. I haven't seen it, but I will tell you that DOD has a number of plans out there to deal with pandemics. We've exercised them in the past. We exercised them early on when this first hit. I think it was late January, early February. It's what we do. We're familiar with it, and I think that's kept us in good stead.
Did the U.S. Military Medical Service, which of course keeps an eye on outbreaks around the world, did they notify you and others in the Pentagon when this first broke in Wuhan, China?
Oh, I couldn't go back and tell you the timing off the top of my head, but of course we have a great epidemiological surveillance system out there. Our doctors are the best in the world. I was at Fort Detrick, Maryland, just a couple days ago, where the military's premier infectious disease researchers are located. You may recall these are the doctors and other professionals who helped resolve Ebola and Zika and other diseases. So we stay on top of these things. It's a part and parcel of what we do in order to protect our force, to ensure we're mission capable. And they, to this day, to this moment, are still on top of this, making sure that we're taking every action we can to both work on and develop therapeutics and a vaccine.
In retrospect, just quickly though, do you think you were made aware of the serious threat this poses soon enough, that you had enough warning? Because as you know, people are asking now whether the administration could have moved more quickly and earlier.
I think the administration has moved very quickly. I think we all could have benefited by having earlier notice from China that this was developing. They had known for some period of time, weeks if not months, that this was brewing in Wuhan, and we didn't have that type of notice, at least not that I'm aware of. That would have helped a great deal in terms of containing that spread within China and then preventing, of course, the spread globally. But again, as soon as we heard about it, we began taking actions. I'm confident the administration acted quickly. We have a great team that's advising the president. The president has made some really bold decisions and acted with great alacrity to make sure that we stayed on top of this and are doing everything we can to protect the American people.
Well, there certainly has been criticism of China for covering this up in the early days, no question about it. But now that it's a global pandemic, and we know the president has called it the Chinese virus, but now that it is a pandemic, how do you see the need to continue to work with Chinese military leaders, for example? Are you still in touch with them on any sort of regular basis?
Well, it is a global pandemic, and so we need to work together globally to deal with it, both certainly at this point on the mitigation, and I'm sure we're working together with many of our allies and partners on therapeutics and vaccines. With regard to the second part of your question, we do. We talk often with our counterparts in China. I think I spoke to my counterpart several weeks ago. At the time, I offered our assistance to China with regard to providing doctors and others to come help them to study the disease and whatnot. But it's important that we maintain those open communications, not just for COVID-19, but of course for anywhere we are in the world where our militaries are interacting with one another. So it's one of the priorities I've placed is establishing those lines of communication. I do it at my level. The chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff does it at his level. Throughout the organization, we try and keep close ties or open ties with China and other countries.
And finally, just quickly, Mr. Secretary, has this outbreak, this crisis, given you a new understanding of the role of the Pentagon, the role of the Defense Department in keeping America safe?
You know, it's another aspect of what we do in terms of providing support to the civilian authorities and support to the American people to help protect them. As I said, I served 10 years on active duty, 11 years in the Guard Reserve, and during my time, at least in the Virginia Guard, I got called out once or twice to help with a flood or hurricane. So this is another mission we do, whether it's floods and hurricanes, wildfires, you name it. Clearly, this is unprecedented in many ways, at least in my lifetime, with the scale, scope, speed at which this virus is spread around the country. But look, DOD is fully committed to doing everything we can to help the American people to mitigate this virus, contain it as best we can, and at the same time, ensuring we provide for the nation's security. And so I'm very proud of the men and women in uniform, of our families, and of our DOD civilians for everything they are doing to help out in this one-team effort.
Secretary of Defense Mark Esper, we thank you very much.
Thank you, Judy.
Anyone who's gone grocery shopping in the U.S. in recent days has likely encountered long lines and empty shelves. But as Amna Nawaz reports, the problem right now is not one of supply.
Judy, stores say that most shortages are temporary and due strictly to an unprecedented surge in buying as panicked consumers rush to stock up on items they feared could soon be hard to find or hard to reach. So how much product is in the pipeline and when might shelves be restocked? To help answer those critical questions, Greg Ferreira, president of the National Grocers Association, which represents over 1,500 independent grocers operating nearly 9,000 stores. He's here with us now, and thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So people will walk into stores and see empty shelves. They're seeing these pictures all over social media. Why is that happening, and how quickly are they being reshelved?
So great question. Our supply chain is experiencing truly an unprecedented event with this crisis. We have never seen levels like this across the United States, and that is actually impacting the supply chain. So when you go into stores, if you see empty shelves, it's taken us a while to get the product flowing through supply chain back to the stores, but it is coming. It is coming through our warehouses. It is coming to the stores. There is plenty of supply in the supply chain. We just need time to catch up.
So it's not the food isn't there, it's just getting it to the shelves.
There is plenty of food, and there is plenty of food in the pipeline. We're getting it to the shelves quickly. It's just going off the shelves as quickly as we get it on there.
So talk to me and talk to consumers out there now who say, well, look, I'm trying to reduce the number of times I go to the store. I'm supposed to be social distancing. I will go now and buy a month's worth of groceries instead of going every week. What's wrong with that approach?
So that's the problem. The problem is we do have people who are buying a month's worth of groceries as opposed to a week's worth of groceries. And we ask people just to remain calm, buy what you need for this week, for a week and a half, take care of yourself, and that'll allow us to catch up, allow us to get the supply chain restocked get product back on stores. And that also helps your neighbor, right? Your neighbor is looking for the same stuff you're looking for. Give us time. Buy what you need now. We want you to take care of yourself, and we'll have product back on the shelves very soon.
We all have to take care of each other, right? What about ripple effects down the line? If transport is disrupted, if the food supply chain is disrupted further, the longer this goes on, can it be harder to resupply those shelves?
So here's the good thing about our food supply in the United States. For the most part, most of the food is produced domestically and even regionally and locally. So we have a very strong supply chain. That supply chain has a lot of redundancies in place, and so we feel very confident about that. We've also been working with the government, both federal, state, and local, to ensure that grocery stores, food manufacturers are considered what we call Tier 1 responders. So they're able to be essential workers, and we can get them to our plants, to our stores, and make sure the product's getting through to consumers.
So when you say Tier 1 employees there, I wanted to ask you about some news I read in Vermont and Minnesota. They basically said everyone who works in the grocery store is now an emergency worker. That means they're eligible for things like free childcare so they can go out and do their jobs. Should that be happening across the country?
It is happening in different areas in different states. Every state is different, but it's been wonderful to see government really rally around the food sector and support our frontline workers who do an absolutely amazing job in the stores right now. And so our members, our industry is working with their state governments to ensure there's more benefits like that coming down the pike. And our stores are being flexible. They're working with their customers to the extent, working with their employees to the extent they can, and making sure they're supporting them throughout this time.
And you're looking for more of those workers right now, is that right?
Absolutely. So we're absolutely looking for more workers, not only in our stores, but in our wholesale distribution centers as well. And this is a great opportunity for people who may be impacted, may have lost their jobs, or be temporarily have seen a reduction in hours. Go to your local supermarket, look online, look at these wholesale distributors that are out there. They're looking for workers. We'd love to have you at this time.
Tell me a little bit about how you're making sure those frontline workers, as you call them, are protecting themselves. Does everyone wear gloves? Are you wiping down product? Should customers be wiping down that product before they take it home?
So the most important thing is we're following federal, state, and local guidelines when it comes to protecting our employees, protecting our customers in the store. That includes making sure that, first and foremost, if an employee is sick, they are told not to come to work. And that goes for customers too. If you are not feeling well, please don't come in our stores. That's very important. But stores are wiping down check stands, they're wiping down handles on freezers, on refrigerators, doing a deep clean at night. You've seen many stores have adjusted hours, not only to allow them to restock, but allow them to do a deeper clean as well. And so we're taking precautions, we're making sure that everyone is safe and taken care of, and we look forward to continuing to serve our customers.
You know, bigger picture, I got to ask you, you see more people shopping online as they're avoiding going into these public spaces and into stores. Do you see this moment in time as changing the way we shop for groceries?
I definitely think we're obviously seeing an uptick in e-commerce and in online orders, both in terms of click and collect, but also in terms of delivery. And I do think we'll see an uptick in that going forward. But people also do still enjoy going to their grocery store. They enjoy selecting their produce, selecting their meat, and I think that's going to continue for some time.
Bottom line, the food is there. Don't panic. Buy what you need.
Yes.
Greg Ferrer of the National Grocers Association, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And please join us tonight for our virtual town hall confronting coronavirus. That's at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central on all PBS stations. Streaming in the PBS app and on the PBS NewsHour social channels, including YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Some of your questions will be answered by those on the front lines battling the crisis, including Dr. Anthony Fauci, who spoke about the president's decision today to fast-track some medicines in their earliest stages that are not yet proven.
What you do is you strike a balance between making something available to the public at the same time you do it under the auspices of a protocol. And it could be a relatively loose protocol, like an expanded access protocol, and even do some compassionate usage, where you have a balance between getting things to people who need it, but at the same time not just throwing drugs out there that you don't know anything about.
Join us tonight for Confronting Coronavirus, right here on PBS at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central. In the day's other news, Iran granted a medical furlough to U.S. Navy veteran Michael White, part of a wider release of prisoners amid the coronavirus pandemic. He had been jailed since 2018 for insulting Iran's supreme leader. He must remain in Iran for now. And Lebanon freed American Amr Fakouri. He had been held since September for overseeing torture of Lebanese, but now has stage 4 cancer. In Washington, President Trump lauded the news.
The United States has no higher priority than the safety and well-being of our citizens. We've gotten a tremendous number of hostages out, as you know. I think we're 42-0, and I want to let everyone know that recovering Americans held captive and imprisoned abroad continues to be a top priority for my administration.
The president also called on the Syrian government for the release of American journalist Austin Tice, who was kidnapped in Syria in 2012. In the U.S. presidential campaign, Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii suspended her long-shot bid for the Democratic nomination today. Instead, she endorsed Joe Biden in a message to her supporters. Gabbard said that despite their political differences, Biden is the best choice to unite the country. And the Olympic torch was officially handed over to organizers of the Tokyo Summer Games under the shadow of the coronavirus pandemic. The normally elaborate ceremony was held in an empty stadium in Athens, Greece. The Japanese delegation was unable to attend due to travel restrictions. There have been calls to delay the July Games because of the pandemic. Still to come on the NewsHour, the future of the U.S. economy is shrouded in uncertainty. What can we learn from the financial crises of the past? The star of the acclaimed film Roma on challenging social inequities in modern Mexico. And a doctor gives her brief but spectacular take on practicing medicine in rural America.
This is the PBS NewsHour from WETA Studios in Washington and in the West from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism at Arizona State University.
As the economic fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic continues, businesses across the country are being crippled by closings and layoffs. The number of Americans filing for unemployment benefits surged last week to a 2.5-year high. For a look at how this economic downturn compares to others, Paul Salmon sat down with Harvard University economist Ken Rogoff. His book, This Time is Different, examines the history of financial crises. It's part of our regular series, Making Sense.
Is this time different?
Well, this is something extraordinary we're facing. It is really hard to think of a historical parallel. I've talked about this with my co-author, Carmen Reinhardt, and we have to go back to 1918, 1919, the Spanish influenza epidemic, which killed, millions and millions of people, to think of something like this worldwide. And it's not exactly the same as after World War I, when things were pretty bad already.
Is this a war?
I think so. I really feel like it's an alien invasion. We're being occupied. We're hiding in our houses. We're told not to leave. We're having a sudden stop in economic activity. We are going to see a recession, at least in the short term, the likes of which we have not seen, at least going back to World War II.
In terms of the U.S. economy, the global economy, how bad could it get?
Well, we don't know how long we're going to be in lockdown. When will there be antivirals? How soon will there be a vaccine? We just don't know how the crisis will unfold. We're still in the war, and until we come out the other end, it's hard to know. But I think what we do know is the short-term drop in output, and quite possibly in employment, could be worse than 2008.
Is there any chance that we won't come out of it in a year or two?
If the virus can be conquered and we can reach a stable situation, I'm very optimistic that we'll be able to do that. But it'll be different for different countries. Italy's in trouble. I mean, they have big pension problems, big debt problems, growth problems going into this. Emerging markets are in trouble. We're actually already seeing emerging markets start to fold under the weight of this. I don't know where China will be. That's a big question mark. I mean, everybody thinks China did great. China's conquered this. Not their economy. I mean, if they're lucky getting people back to work in the manufacturing sector, but who's going to buy the stuff once they start manufacturing if the rest of the world's in recession?
Are Congress, the president, and the Fed responding appropriately?
Let's say they're moving forcefully in the right direction. I think the response here to protect the healthy part of the economy needs to be just massive.
More massive than what they're doing now?
$1 trillion is just a starter package on what's going to end up needing to be done here. If you're shutting down a $23 trillion economy for 2 months or 3 months, The expenses are just massive. Workers losing their jobs, businesses going out of business. You can't allow that to happen too far. So no, I think we'll see many further packages of different types, not all like this one.
Bailing out the airlines, for example, the hotel industry, restaurants?
So one of the tough things in this, and I don't know how to make that judgment, is, how much, who to bail out. But certainly the hospitality industry, to some extent the airlines, they're bystanders here. They didn't create this. They weren't flying too many routes and about to go bankrupt. So I think you have to first, really importantly, the healthcare sector. We have to go in a military, wartime stance, if necessary, taking over parts of the private sector for production and of masks, of respirators, building up facilities. That will calm people down. That will help things pass. Then you have to help the directly affected people and sectors. And then the kind of bailout that they're talking about with sending checks to individuals, that's to protect the healthy parts of the economy. All of these things need to be done. And the Fed has to come in, and the Treasury, to provide loans to corporates, to businesses, so they don't go bankrupt, so that we have businesses when we come out of this.
You're someone who's worried about governments taking on too much debt. That's now not a consideration anymore?
No, absolutely not. I mean, there's never been a concern about our governments defaulting. The concern is being able to borrow massively when you need to. That's the whole point of saving for a rainy day. When it rains, you want to really open up the floodgates. And here, there's no limit. We're in a war. You have to win the war. I would have no problem with the government debt magically going up $5 trillion in the blink of an eye if we could get out of this in 2 or 3 months healthily. This is an emergency. You're not worrying about your credit standing right away. I don't think it's going to be a problem. And you know what? If we have inflation at the end of this, so what? If that's what we needed to do to win this war. We're trying to protect American people, protect our interests, protect the future. This is really, think like World War II, World War I. It's this tiny little viruses invading us, but, make no mistake, this is like a war, an alien invasion.
Sobering. Once again, that was Paul Solomon talking with Harvard economist Ken Rogoff. We take a small step back now from our coverage of the coronavirus outbreak for the first in a series of stories from Jeffrey Brown about Mexico's vibrant arts and culture scene. The 2018 film Roma, set in Mexico, won many awards and acclaim, but it also sparked a national debate about racial and social inequities. The woman, at its heart, has carved out a new off-screen role as an advocate for change. This is part of our ongoing arts and culture coverage, Canvas.
Oscar Night 2019. 25-year-old Yalitza Aparicio from the Mexican state of Oaxaca made history as the first indigenous woman from the Americas to vie for the Best Actress award. Not so many years before, she'd seen a far less glamorous side of life.
Cuando me encontraba con la realidad de buscar un trabajo,
when I found myself in the reality of looking for a job, many places would close doors on me because of my physical appearance. The problem was the color of my skin. In many cases, it's also about your socioeconomic level.
In the film Roma, Aparicio played Cleo, the live-in maid in an affluent Mexico City household in the 1970s. Cleo is relied upon by the mother, loved by the children. Filmmaker Alfonso Cuarón, who won the Oscar for Best Director, based the story on his own upbringing. But the class and race differences between family and worker are obvious. The casually dismissive treatment glaring. Aparicio, who studied to be a teacher, had never acted and auditioned on a whim. But Cuarón saw something in her. In Mexico City recently, she told me she drew on her mother's experience.
From
the beginning, I took it as a personal issue because my mother was a domestic worker, and I think it's important that she too knew her rights. But I realized that she was not the only woman who was unaware of what she was deserving of by law. So I think there's a chance to lift our voice and raise awareness.
Hola a todos, buenas tardes.
from film star to international ambassador. Since Roma's release, Aparicio has used her new celebrity to become a leading activist and advocate on behalf of indigenous culture and the rights of domestic workers.
Para mí quiere decir que
For me, it means that I'm giving a voice and visibility to causes that are correct in my opinion, or that are necessary in society. I enjoy fighting for my indigenous community because I feel proud of who I am and think that we shouldn't lose that pride and identity.
The first thing I saw in the film was that the situation of the domestic workers in Mexico in the 70s to the 2000s had not changed at all.
Marcelina Bautista came from Oaxaca to Mexico City at age 14 to work as a maid, a normal path for girls in her village. Many years later, she founded Mexico's first ever union of domestic workers, and on this day led a workshop to educate her members, who spoke of abuses they've faced.
It is a sector in the labor world that presents many forms of discrimination and abuse and violation of human rights. Many are not paid a salary that they deserve. They live in a room of a house that's in bad shape, very humid, no lock on the door. These female workers have been hit.
But there has been change. Last year, Mexico's Congress passed a new law that for the first time gives domestic workers basic labor rights, including a minimum wage, retirement benefits, and workplace protections. Bautista says the struggle now is to raise awareness among workers and employers and ensure government enforcement. And she credits Roma and the debate it sparked with jump-starting long-delayed action.
Honestly, I felt very powerful using the movie to tell lawmakers that they are still not doing their part, to tell employers that the situation remains the same and they can no longer feel like they are doing us a favor by giving us a job.
Yalitza Aparicio, Bautista says, played a special role through her own personal story.
Yalitza somos muchas. We are many Yalitzas. And Yalitza, when she is in a space speaking on behalf of people or issues, I do think she represents us very well.
Aparicio is also having another kind of impact here in changing perceptions of beauty. Vogue Mexico put her on its cover, a first for an indigenous woman. Light-skinned models and personalities dominate the cultural landscape. Vogue Mexico editor Carla Martinez de Salas.
What we have seen in magazines historically is, this kind of European American ideal of beauty.
Yeah, which Yalitza Aparicio is not.
Which Yalitza is not. I think it's changing little by little.
With the film Roma, Martinez de Salas saw an opportunity.
I heard of the movie, and she was the first indigenous woman to take on this role. And so I did think, why not celebrate this? So yes, a big part of it was to break this kind of stereotype that you think of, what is a Vogue cover girl.
The cover led to other photo shoots, and Aparicio also became the face of a Head & Shoulders ad campaign. There was praise and excitement, but also a nasty, often racist social media backlash, filled with ugly comments.
We still have a ways to go as far as even the ideals of Mexican beauty. In October, we did an indigenous beauty story celebrating the beauty of Mexico.
Yeah.
And
but that's still unusual,
yes,
you're saying.
Yes, but I do feel like it's something that we have to push forward.
Las personas aún siguen encerradas.
People are still prisoners to social circles where appearances and socioeconomic status matter. I really think this is something that should already be changing.
Yalitza Aparicio says she now wants to balance acting and activism. One of her projects is a push for inclusion of indigenous languages in the education system. Languages being lost, students falling behind.
My job is to give visibility to these communities and talk about them wherever I go. We're working sector by sector.
It sounds very difficult to change a large society with a long history.
Sí, realmente suena muy difícil.
Yes, it sounds difficult, and it is difficult to change something that people have been used to for years. But that's what it's about. It's about telling people this isn't normal and they shouldn't be used to it.
Are you happy with the way your life has changed and what it is now?
Sí, estoy muy contenta.
Yes, I am very happy. Everything that I'm doing with that intention, with that affection, and therefore I am enjoying it. And I hope to continue enjoying it for many years. And that it's not just me, but that maybe in the next years, there are others fighting for these causes with me.
For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Jeffrey Brown in Mexico City.
As COVID-19 continues to overwhelm healthcare systems around the world, here in the U.S. there is increasing concern hospitals won't have enough supplies, staff, and beds to treat those who become seriously ill. In tonight's Brief but Spectacular, we visit Dr. Karen Kinsel. She's the only physician in Fort Gaines, Georgia, where she serves her town's 3,000 residents.
I think a lot of people don't understand that not everyone in America has the ability to go to the doctor. Fort Gaines is in Clay County in southwest Georgia. We have about 3,000 people. About 40% of the people are below the poverty level. I've been the only doctor here for 15 years. Next closest hospital and doctor in Georgia is 20 miles away. I've been called the last doctor in Clay County. So when I die or leave or retire or whatever, does that mean that there really won't be a doctor here? Our office was not built as a doctor's office and really shouldn't be a doctor's office. It was built as a Tasty Freeze in the 1950s. It has tremendous leaks in the roof. We literally keep out trash cans to catch the water when it rains. We currently use the former freezer as a drug storage area. It's horrible, but we really don't have the resources to do anything different. And there really aren't any other buildings in the county that are acceptable. There was one pharmacy in Clay County for the last 30 or 40 years, and it closed a year and a half ago. Right now, it's about a 30-mile round trip to pick up a pill. And as an internist, where our tools are pills, this becomes a very serious situation. Many of the specialists in this area won't even accept Medicaid patients. We frequently get involved in internal medicine, specialty care, endocrinology, rheumatology. That's absolutely outside my scope of expertise. I could probably get sued for it if something untoward happened, but this is the only way we know of to get people that care. We averaged between 25 and 30 patients a day. Often people don't have access to transportation. People struggle every day to have food and gas. We ask for $10. If they can't afford that, we see them anyway. We don't turn anyone away. There's no point of me spending my time out here if I can't go ahead and see everyone who needs to be seen. The pervasive poverty just affects people's view of the world. We recently had a grant and gave cameras to high school kids and asked them what they want to take pictures of. And what they chose were abandoned houses because that's what represented Clay County to them. You know, like all doctors, I went to medical school, worked really hard, paid a lot of money to learn how to use the technology to help people live healthy, long lives. To be in a place like this where you know what needs to happen and you simply cannot get that for that person, that's devastating. You know, I have very deep roots in this community at this point. I know these people. To just up and leave would be very personally devastating for me, and I think would adversely affect the health care of people I see. I think I save lives by being here. And I mean, that's tremendously rewarding. I mean, what bigger high could you have? My name is Dr. Karen Kinsel. This is my brief but spectacular take on being the only doctor in a poor rural area.
Dr. Kinsel, everybody like her. They are our heroes. And you can find all of our brief but spectacular segments online at pbs.org/newshour/brief. On the NewsHour Online, all of the turmoil in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic is a recipe for stress and can take a toll on our mental health. We explore why and what you can do to take care of yourself on our website, pbs.org/newshour. And that is the NewsHour for tonight. Don't forget to tune in to our special Confronting Coronavirus tonight at 8 p.m. on your PBS station and streaming. Crown, the coronavirus spreads through Great Britain, how citizens there are adjusting to a nation transformed.
We're going to go through that period of denial, confusion, annoyance, anger, and then sooner or later, within 10 days or so, we'll get that period of acceptance.
And it's Friday. Mark Shields and David Brooks analyze a week unlike any other in living memory, one that has fundamentally altered the course of American life. All that and more on tonight's PBS NewsHour.
Major funding for the PBS NewsHour has been provided by
moving our economy for 160 years. BNSF, the engine that connects us.
When it comes to wireless, Consumer Cellular gives its customers the choice. Our no-contract plans give you as much or as little talk, text, and data as you want. And our U.S.-based customer service team is on hand to help. To learn more, go to consumercellular.tv.
American Cruise Lines, Fidelity Investments,
The John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, fostering informed and engaged communities. More at kf.org.
and with the ongoing support of these institutions. And friends of the NewsHour. This program was made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
More of the country is closing down tonight, trying to contain the coronavirus pandemic. New York State and Illinois have now joined California in taking that step, with more states expected to follow. Meanwhile, President Trump invoked emergency powers to move medical supplies into place as quickly as possible, as U.S. infections topped 15,000, with more than 200 deaths. William Brangham begins our coverage.
In much of California, stay-at-home orders have already brought much of public life to a halt. And today, those orders expanded statewide. Governor Gavin Newsom asked the entire state, 40 million people, to stay home. He cited an analysis that half the state could be infected in the next 8 weeks if more aggressive moves weren't taken. So he ordered that nothing but the most essential activities continue.
We will have social pressure that will encourage people to do the right thing, just a nod and look saying, hey, maybe you should reconsider just being out there on the beach, being 22 strong at a park. It's time for all of us to recognize as individuals and as a community, we need to do more to meet this moment.
It's unclear how the new orders will be enforced, but it's one of the most drastic containment efforts underway. Across the country, another huge effort. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo ordered every employer in his state to keep their workers at home.
100% of the workforce must stay home. These are non-essential services. Essential services have to continue to function. Grocery stores need food, pharmacies need drugs, your internet has to continue to work, the water has to turn on when you turn the faucet. So there are essential services that will continue to function.
And Illinois' governor issued a shelter-in-place order effective tomorrow. These states have seen a surge in COVID-19 cases, and they, along with Washington state, are the hardest hit in the country. Their hospital systems are already being stressed, and critical protective supplies are running low. The White House offered some forms of relief today. President Trump said he had invoked the Defense Production Act and directed certain companies to change their focus and produce supplies needed for the coronavirus fight. And the president also announced an extension to the April 15 tax filing deadline.
We're moving it all the way out to July 15th. No interest, no penalties. Your new date will be July 15th.
In a move to stem the spread of the virus across countries, he announced the U.S. and Mexico had agreed to close down the southern border to non-essential travel. But in what turned into a testy, contentious press conference, the president also said several things that are factually wrong. For example, he cited the wrong symptoms for COVID-19.
They're sneezing, they're sniffling, they don't feel good, they have a temperature, there are a lot of different things.
Actual symptoms are fever, but also dry cough and trouble breathing. Sneezing and sniffling are not. He implied that an unproven anti-malaria drug could prevent infection. There's zero proof of that. One of his top health officials, Dr. Anthony Fauci, had to correct the record moments later.
The answer is no.
And contrary to all public health guidance, the president implied the U.S. didn't need additional testing for the virus.
You're hearing very positive things about testing. It's able to test millions of people. But we inherited a broken, old, frankly, a terrible system. We fixed it. And we've done a great job.
Across Pennsylvania Avenue, negotiations began between senators and the administration over a $1 trillion economic relief package to provide some cushion for the economic toll the virus is taking.
I don't think I need to tell anybody how catastrophic that is. That's happening all over this country, and it's going to accelerate. Today's a payday. Today, some people in this country will get paid and told not only are they not working on Monday, but they're not getting paid any longer.
The Republicans' relief plan proposes direct payments to individuals of up to $1,200 and $2,400 for couples, loans to small businesses struggling to meet payroll, and relief for hard-hit industries like commercial airlines. But Democrats again pushed for a different focus.
The medical priority has to be the first priority. Everything else follows from that. Unfortunately, their plan does not address that as much as we believe it should.
Meanwhile, Capitol Hill was rocked by reports that some senators had sold substantial amounts of stock after they received early private briefings on the state of the outbreak. In Italy, more tragic news. The nation saw its biggest daily rise in coronavirus deaths, more than 600 in the last 24 hours. Worldwide, the death toll from this pandemic surpassed 11,000 people today. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm William Brangham.
Wall Street is limping into the weekend after its worst week since the 2008 meltdown. Stocks sank today after New York State ordered workers to stay home on top of California's statewide lockdown. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 913 points to close below 19,174. The Nasdaq fell 271 points and the S&P 500 fell 105. For the week, the Dow lost 17%. The Nasdaq fell 12%, and the S&P 500 dropped 15%. Now, to help walk us through how Washington is responding to all of this, I'm joined by our White House correspondent, Yamiche Alcindor, and our congressional correspondent, Lisa Desjardins. So, Yamiche, to you first, going back to some of what William was reporting, what do we know now about testing, the availability of testing, and then what the White House is doing with regard to making more medical supplies available?
Well, there are two critical things and two critical challenges that the United States is facing right now as it relates to coronavirus. The first is that the U.S. is not able at this point to meet the demand of testing. There are a lot of people who want to be tested and need to be tested for the coronavirus who are not being able to get those tests. The second thing is that there are hospitals saying that they are facing dire shortages of medical equipment, things like masks and other equipment that they need to treat patients. So I put a question to the president that said, when will people, everyone who needs a test, be able to get a coronavirus test? Here's what he said.
We inherited, meaning this administration, an obsolete, broken system that wasn't meant for anything like this. Now we have a system that you can see, because look, we're well into this and nobody's even talking about it, except for you, which doesn't surprise me.
There are Americans, though, who say that they have symptoms and they can't get tests.
Well, okay.
What do you say to the Americans who are saying that they have symptoms and they can't get
but we don't want everybody to go out and get a test because there's no reason for it.
So the president's saying that he has not heard of any Americans who have coronavirus symptoms who need a test but aren't able to get a test. We have heard from so many people who say that they do need a test and haven't been able to get one. Dr. Anthony Fauci, an expert, a health expert in this administration, said no, very clearly the United States is not able to meet that demand. The other thing is the president saying he inherited a mess and he had to rebuild the entire system. Obama administration officials continue to stress that they left the president with a White House pandemic office and he disbanded it in 2018. The other thing to note is that the president's talking about having this Defense Production Act being invoked, but the president was going back and forth, and he really never landed very clearly on whether or not he's actually directing companies to start making medical equipment. Instead, he said that companies like General Motors, they want to start making medical equipment, but it's not clear whether or not the president is actually saying you need to now start making medical equipment. And of course, that's very, very important for hospitals who are facing these shortages.
So, Yamiche, we saw that the president also got into somewhat of a back and forth, if you will, with reporters at that briefing today over when he was asked about how the administration is handling all this.
That's right. This is probably one of the most contentious press conferences I've ever seen with the president. President Trump was angry. He was lashing out at reporters. Specifically, he was talking about the idea that he felt aggrieved by NBC News' Peter Alexander. He said that he was very angry at Peter for asking a question about whether or not he had a message for Americans who were scared. President Trump said that he was a nasty reporter, that was a bad question. We've seen the president do this over and over again. The other thing to note is that for the first time possibly in modern history, a former White House press secretary was posing questions to the president that used to work for. Sean Spicer was sitting next to me today in the White House briefing room. So it was very interesting to see the president lash out. The other thing is, of course, the president was in a much better mood when he was talking about the border changes that he's making. He said, I've been trying to make a lot of changes, a lot of things that I wanted to do about undocumented immigrants, and now I'm able to do those things.
So, Lisa, let me turn to you now because Congress clearly moving very quickly at speed we're not used to seeing to try to come up with legislation to address not only the health questions that are out there, but also the economic questions.
I'll tell you, Judy, all day today at the Capitol, the premises here is mostly abandoned with the exception of a large number of White House officials and cabinet secretaries who, there were so many, you kind of almost just ran into them in the halls because they are having meetings all across the Senate to try and figure out a deal. They are trying to get a draft proposal done by midnight tonight. And here's what we know about that, things that Yamiche and I have been reporting, but something new is a bigger focus on hospitals, maybe building new temporary hospitals to deal with those medical issues that Yamiche is raising and others are concerned about. One piece that does seem to be cementing right now is that small business help. Let's look at where that stands right now for small businesses interested. Here's the proposal as it stands at this moment. The idea would be to float hundreds of billions of dollars in loans that could be processed in days for small businesses that need it. The idea is that that could help for back pay retroactive to March 1st. For a business that's already have to stop paying their workers, they could repay them with this deal, and those loans would be forgiven if that small business uses that federal loan money for payroll or for lease money. Now, that's the part that seems to be kind of taken care of, agreed upon. There is a real question, though, Judy, about unemployment benefits, those who are out of work, who are not with a small business. There are many senators who would like to increase that unemployment benefit by a lot. But today, if we look at what's happening with that, the idea of raising the unemployment check amount is running into a logistical problem. States which actually operate the unemployment system may not be able to handle that surge, they are telling Congress, and there could be a lag in trying to get that payment out. So Congress is wrestling with a logistical issue when it comes to unemployment. This is where the idea of the direct payment to Americans come in, probably $1,200 check or so. That is still very much on the table. I want to also mention Speaker Pelosi is paying close attention to these talks so that the House would be able to ring in very quickly. And the idea is to maybe vote on all of this by Monday. That seems incredibly optimistic to me, but I want to say that is the official word from Senator McConnell's office. That is their hope.
Well, there are suggestions that there is going to be a giant increase in unemployment. But separately, Lisa, on Capitol Hill, there are some other questions being raised about whether some members of Congress are profiting during this national emergency. And Lisa has more on that.
2 U.S. senators under scrutiny and defending themselves, Richard Burr of North Carolina and Kelly Loeffler of Georgia. The Republicans sold off millions of dollars in stocks at different points in the weeks before global financial markets tanked. Here's what we know.
It was a good presentation.
On January 24th, the Senate was briefed about the coronavirus in a private, secure meeting with top health officials. That same day, Loeffler's trading account began selling off stocks worth between $1 to $3 million and purchasing stocks in companies focused on working from home. Loeffler co-owned those stocks with her husband, who is the chairman of the New York Stock Exchange. But roughly 3 weeks later, she publicly showed confidence in the market.
The good news is the consumer is strong, the economy is strong.
The committee will engage.
As for Burr, who is chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, on February 7th, he co-wrote an op-ed assuring the United States was better prepared than ever before to face coronavirus. On February 12th, the U.S. stock market hit an all-time high, but coronavirus deaths in China had topped 1,000. The Centers for Disease Control warned that same day of coronavirus spreading in the U.S. The following day, February 13th, Burr's trading account sold off between $628,000 and $1.7 million in stocks. Both Burr and Loeffler have denied they made the financial moves based on non-public information, which would be illegal for members of Congress.
It's absolutely false, and it could not be true.
Loeffler said today a money manager does all of her trades, and she doesn't learn of them until 3 weeks later. In a statement today, Burr said he, quote, relied solely on public news reports to guide my decision regarding the sale of stocks on February 13th. Burr also asked the Senate Ethics Committee to open an investigation in the matter to provide, quote, full transparency.
So, Lisa, you spoke today with Senator Loeffler and with Senator Burr's office.
That's right. Just a quick note here. So the questions that remain, though, Senator Loeffler saying basically she had nothing to do with these stock trades because it goes through a third party. But we don't know who else she may have spoken to. Did she speak to her husband, who could have spoken to their money manager? It doesn't sound like she has a blind trust per se. Senator Burr is saying his office says that he has been raising the alarm about pandemics for a long time, and he's had this concern for a while. The question for both of them, of course, is their public statements versus what they were doing with their stocks.
Yes, that is a question. And Lisa, what did the experts tell you about whether what has happened appears to have broken a law?
Our producer, Jeffrey Garay, spoke with former federal prosecutors, SEC enforcement officers, congressional ethics experts. They say we just don't know enough yet about the timing and exactly who these senators spoke with. But two of those people said they do think there might be enough to initiate a case. Right now, Judy, this is in the hands of the Senate Ethics Committee, which is not the most transparent body on earth. But we obviously will be paying close attention. There are other members of Congress that have made stock trades, but the timing is not as suspect as it is for these two. It doesn't raise as many questions.
And Yamiche, over at the White House, the president was asked about this.
That's right. The president said he would possibly be interested in seeing these senators be investigated for these stock trades, but he said these are good, honorable people and that they've said that they've done nothing wrong. I should say a couple days ago, I talked to a White House economic advisor, Larry Kudlow. He said that the coronavirus might be a good buying opportunity for people. When I asked him about specifically what he would say to Americans who were scared about their 401ks or their retirement funds. So there is this business message coming from the White House as well.
Yamiche Alcindor at the White House, Lisa Desjardins at the Capitol. Thank you both.
Welcome.
This has been a week when more cities and states have started far more comprehensive shutdowns in a desperate bid to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 in this country. I spoke yesterday with Dr. Anthony Fauci, head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, and one of the nation's top public health officials. About that, I spoke to him about that and about how the country is faring when it comes to slowing the pandemic here. He joined us on our special Confronting Coronavirus, and we continued our conversation. Dr. Anthony Fauci, thank you very much for joining us. As we sit here, middle of March, what is your biggest concern about this coronavirus pandemic?
Well, I mean, my biggest concern, I think, would be obvious because we've seen its potential. We see what it did in China. We see what it has done in Korea, and we see what it's doing right now in European countries, particularly Italy and France. We have an escalation of cases in our own country right now, And my concern is, and I hope it goes from a concern to a realization that we're doing what we should be doing, is that we really need to take the recommendations and the guidelines of how to mitigate the spread of this very, very seriously. The situation that are well delineated in the guidelines about avoiding crowds, getting people who are vulnerable to essentially self-isolate. Don't go to bars, don't go to restaurants, don't go to places where there are crowds and gatherings. 10 people at the most if you want to do something socially. If we do that, and we do that conscientiously, as inconvenient as that might be, we will go a long way to muting the ultimate effect of this. So my concern is that maybe in certain areas, certain people are not taking that seriously. Everyone has to take that seriously. And we particularly depend on the younger individuals who may feel that they're invulnerable because they hear, appropriately, that the disease or the infection in young people is not nearly as severe as if you're an elderly person or person who has an underlying condition.
I hear you say that, and yet you see pictures, video of people enjoying themselves at the beach in Florida and perhaps other places. What do you say to them?
One of the things that stimulated me to make the statement about appealing and pleading to the younger generation is that I see those pictures of people frolicking around at a bar. I mean, no, it's spring break in many cases. You're young, you feel you're invulnerable, you want to have a good time. I get that. You know, I was young at one time and I enjoyed doing that, but this is a very unique situation we are in. You know, you can almost make it analogous to what was happening, you know, in a war when everyone was called upon to just step to the plate and do something extraordinary. It isn't business as usual. We cannot treat this as business as usual.
Speaking of spring break, there has been conflicting advice to Americans this week in different states about whether schools should be closed or open, daycare centers. What is your best advice on that right now?
You know, it really varies from location to location, and you want to listen to the local, state, and local health authorities, but you also would hope that they are looking at the guidelines that are coming from the federal level, because they're only guidelines. They say you should, they don't say you must, but they should at least be looked at. So clearly, in certain circumstances, particularly in areas where there's community spread, the schools should be closed.
Dr. Fauci, Reuters is reporting today that the first cases of COVID-19 reported in the United States and South Korea on the same day, January the 20th. But in South Korea, they moved very quickly. They had testing made available, manufacturing made available within days. They moved very quickly to identify who had COVID-19. The story in the United States has been a lot slower. This country is still, as you've said, not ready with tests everywhere they're needed. What has gone wrong here, not just with testing, but with all the equipment and the preparation and the social distancing that didn't get implemented until the last few days?
To be fair, I don't think that something has gone wrong. Obviously, nothing was perfect. With regard to the testing, we've gone over that over and over again about initially the system that we use for testing from the CDC, developing a test, getting it to the public health authorities, was not designed to the broad type of high throughput testing that goes out to the country. We are now really in that arena now. Let's look forward as opposed to back. That's working. But the other things we're doing, I think that we are actually being and have been quite aggressive. I mean, whenever you have an outbreak, if you look at the history of outbreaks, it's a little bit like the fog of war. I mean, people try to do the right thing, and sometimes they get it right from the beginning. Sometimes they correct and really go. I would think where we are right now, in a good place. It isn't perfect by any means. We still have to get more equipment, and we're doing something to get more equipment. We still need to make sure that testing is much more available, but it's getting there really rapidly.
Last thing, Dr. Fauci, I know you've been very reluctant to predict how long this is going to be with us, but I do get the question. I had somebody say, is there a danger this is going to be like frankly, the Black Plague, something from the 14th century, which was there, but it came back again and again for years. What do we know about that?
We don't know, Judy, because this is unprecedented. But you can kind of project and surmise from experience with different infections that we've been confronted with, both in our own lifetime and historically. The goal right now, as I've said very often, if you leave the virus to its own devices, it will go way up and then come way down the way it did in China. If you try to mute it, make it be much less of an impact, you won't completely eradicate it. I hope we do and get rid of it the way we did SARS. It's unlikely, given the efficiency with which this spreads, that that's going to happen. I can't guarantee. So what might happen is that it may go under the radar screen for a while, and then as we get into the next winter season, late fall, winter, it may come back. I mean, we'd be unrealistic to think that that's not at least a possibility. But it would be different then, because by then, hopefully, we will have been better prepared to respond in a public health way, number one. Number two, we will have already tested several drugs, some of which hopefully might be effective, and we'd be much, much closer to a vaccine, which, as you know, I've said many times, might be ready for deployment between a year and a half. So it's conceivable that it will cycle and come back. But when it does, we'd be much, much, much in a different position than we are right now.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, we thank you very much.
Good to be with you.
In the day's other news, former Democratic presidential candidate Michael Bloomberg announced today he is transferring $18 million to the Democratic National Committee. The money comes from his campaign account and is the largest such transfer ever. At the same time, Bloomberg dropped plans to keep hundreds of campaign workers on his own payroll in support of the party's nominee. Meanwhile, Indiana became the 8th state to delay its presidential primary due to the coronavirus pandemic. Officials pushed it back from May 5th to June 2nd. In Afghanistan, at least 17 police and soldiers were killed overnight in a so-called insider attack. Officials said some in the security forces joined Taliban fighters assaulting a base in Zabul province in the south. It was one of the most serious attacks since the U.S. and the Taliban agreed last month on withdrawing foreign troops. 4 men in India were hanged today for the gang rape and murder of a young woman on a New Delhi bus back in 2012. The crime ignited protests across India and outrage around the world. At dawn today, crowds gathered outside the jail as demonstrators celebrated the executions amid tight security.
This has brought peace to my heart, and a huge burden has been lifted. The gang rape victim who left this world in sheer pain has gotten justice. Her parents have waited for so long.
In the years since the murder, India has imposed tougher sentencing rules for sexual assault. Still, activists say the new penalties have not deterred rape. And this was the 25th anniversary of a nerve gas attack in Tokyo, Japan. A doomsday cult released the chemical in the city's subway system, killing 13 people and injuring thousands more. Subway workers and the victims' relatives held a moment of silence today at the station that was targeted. A larger ceremony was canceled because of the coronavirus pandemic. Still to come on the NewsHour, warning signs, the critical days ahead as the virus spreads through the U.S. The pandemic abroad, life in the United Kingdom during the era of COVID-19. Plus, Mark Shields and David Brooks analyze a week in America unlike any other.
This is the PBS NewsHour from WETA Studios in Washington and in the West from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism at Arizona State University.
A question asked since the start of the pandemic is, should the U.S. have been better prepared? Nick Schifrin has a look at that now with someone who for decades occupied a front row seat in government efforts.
For years, experts inside and outside government have sounded the alarm that the U.S. needed to better prepare for a pandemic. One of those experts is Dr. Kenneth Bernard, an epidemiologist, a retired Rear Admiral in the U.S. Public Health Service, and was the lead for public health issues on the National Security Council staffs during the Clinton and George W. Bush administrations. Dr. Bernard, thank you very much. Welcome to the NewsHour. Is the administration today taking the right steps?
Yes, I think so.
much delayed, but in fact, they're doing the right thing. They're listening. They're putting together a plan that will protect us into the future, may help control the amount of disease we see in the United States. And the president's plan to move forward, I think, is the right one. Now, there have been a few missteps along the line, but I want to really emphasize that despite mistakes that have been made before this time, this is a battle. This is a war against a biologic enemy. And we all need to pull together as a country and fight this war, independent of our opinions about what happened in the past or what our political opinions of the current administration or other administrations happen to be.
And it is a battle that we must win, and we must win all together. For a minute, though, I do want to ask you about those delays, or much delayed, I think, as you put it. You have criticized the administration's initial responses. Many others have criticized the administration's initial responses. What was inadequate about the initial response?
Advanced planning. Many of the things that we're doing right now, increasing our personal protective equipment, increasing the number of ventilators, planning for hospital surge capacity, all could have been done in advance because we've known an epidemic is coming. We've had a series of epidemics back from SARS and Ebola and pandemic flu, and there's many epidemics in the history of mankind, even in the recent 15 or 20 years, that have indicated that this is a real risk, an ongoing risk to humanity. And we need to plan for these, and we need to plan for them in advance. And that is the biggest misstep I've seen, is the late plans that were implemented over the last few weeks that could have been implemented a month or a month and a half ago.
What is supposed to be the hub for planning in the administration, of course, is the National Security Council staff. In 2018, the then National Security Advisor, John Bolton, eliminated the Office of Global Health Security on the National Security Council staff. That was not the first time, though, that had happened. You were in that job in early 2001. The Bush administration eliminated it. Job brought back. The Obama administration then eliminated it as well. So this is actually a bipartisan blind spot?
It is. The Bush administration, when they came in, abolished the office altogether until, of course, 9/11 and the anthrax attacks. Suddenly, they recreated an office with 5 people. I was put head of that office, and that office stayed in place doing some really good work for the next, till the next administration started. Next administration started, there were no more big epidemics in the offing. From what they could tell, this was not an important issue for the national security environment. Abolished the office again.
You just said not an important issue for the national security environment. It's an extraordinary statement when we think about what is happening today. But as you say, it's not about politics. Is it more about how the national security community doesn't coordinate with each other and perhaps doesn't take health seriously?
Yes, this has been the problem from the very start. The problem is a tribal one. The national security folks, Defense Department, State Department, intelligence agencies, they deal with hardball politics and hardball foreign policy. They don't really see health as, in the past, have not seen health except as support for their own people. The fact that health actually has national security implications has been a hard sell for 20 years. And that's the reason why they kept abolishing the offices. You wouldn't have abolished the Office of Russian Affairs at the NSC because somebody wasn't interested in Russian affairs, but they abolished the Office of Biodefense and Health Affairs because each new foreign policy lead that would come into the White House would say, it's a health issue. Send it off to Health and Human Services.
Let's fast forward back to today's crisis. A lot of State Department officials tell me that they blame China. They blame China for covering this up. And if China had acted better, then we would be more ahead of the problem. Do you agree?
It's possible, but essentially completely irrelevant. Did the president's early decision to block those from China, especially from Wuhan, entering the United States? Absolutely. We were given a month of extra time to prepare for what would be inevitable in this country given the virus. And instead, we spent most of our time worried about blocking borders and not enough time preparing for the inevitable.
And Dr. Bernard, we started this conversation with the idea that we all need to come together and we all need to win this battle. What does a good response look like from here on out, and how can we all be part of that?
Well, first of all, we all are beginning to work together on this. I haven't seen this in a long time, and I've never seen an outbreak or an epidemic like this in my entire life. And I'm sure that's true for many people who are working on it. We all need to follow the directions of the administration on social distancing. In my case, I'm in California, and in New York, we're sheltering at home. We're just not going anywhere. We need to do that. We need to flatten the epidemic curve. We need to decrease the stress on our medical emergency systems because they are going to be overwhelmed in the next 2 weeks. We also, as a government, need to aggressively pursue antiviral agents and other countermeasures. And I think any dollar that isn't spent on that could be is a crime.
Dr. Kenneth Bernard, retired Rear Admiral and the former head of public health issues on both the Clinton and George W. Bush administration National Security Council staffs. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Europe is now the epicenter of this outbreak, with Italy, Spain, and France contending with a flood of patients. 10 days ago, the attitude in the United Kingdom was keep calm and carry on. But now the stakes are higher and the national feeling more dire. Special correspondent Malcolm Brabham is near his home in Marlow, England tonight. Malcolm?
Judy, the death toll in the United Kingdom now stands at 177. The big news tonight is that the government is promising billions to save jobs and businesses, and the Prime Minister has ordered all pubs and restaurants to close to try to reduce the risk of contagion. He wants everybody who can to work from home, and that's why tonight my report is coming from my hometown, Marlow, 30 miles west of London. This class was the last chance for part-time teacher Leah Harris to earn before all British schools were shuttered. It was the second blow in double time. Her main dancing gig in the show 42nd Street ended when COVID-19 brought the curtains down across London's theatreland.
It's just so sudden and very, very scary. Where's the money even going to come from? Producers are going to run out of money because they haven't got ticket sales going out. Who knows when it's going to end?
Before closing the doors tonight, Joe Noel Hartley, the owner of this small theatre and drama school, issued an appeal.
We need the government to pause all mortgage payments and rent payments. I think that's the most important thing. People need roofs over their heads, and I don't know how anybody is going to survive working for possibly 2 months without any income.
Westminster listened. Prime Minister Boris Johnson promised tenants protection against possible eviction.
It is very important that as we ask the public to do the right thing for themselves and for everybody else, that no one, whatever their income, should be penalised for doing the right thing.
Johnson was criticised for not closing schools sooner, but today pupils left campuses not knowing when they'll return. The school furlough means many parents will have to abandon work to provide childcare. That adds to the worries of auto trader Tim Platt.
I woke up in a cold sweat at about 3 o'clock this morning and then just couldn't go back to sleep.
Platt's dealership has been a pillar of the local economy for a century, but COVID-19 poses an existential threat to even the most successful businesses. Platt is determined to retain his 50-strong workforce.
It's about how do you get people spending money and keeping the circulation going, because if that circulation isn't there, it's got to be very disruptive.
Tonight, Prime Minister Johnson and his Finance Minister Rishi Sunak issued a blank cheque to protect jobs and businesses.
Government grants will cover 80% of the salary of retained workers, up to a total of £2,500 a month. That's just above the median income.
After being accused of dithering, the government also tonight ordered pubs, cafes and clubs to close because so many people refused to exercise self-restraint. Some watering holes, like the Ship, voluntarily went into dry dock before the ban came into force.
You may think that you're invincible, but there is no guarantee that you will get mild symptoms, and you can still be a carrier of the disease and pass it on to others.
The bottling plant at the local brewery is silent. Normally, this production line generates an annual turnover of $6 million. Co-owner Mark Gloins knows the line between profitability and catastrophe is razor thin.
80% of what we brew, we sell through the trade, and we've lost that pretty much overnight.
Gloins hopes that his on-site store can help cash flow. Customer Val Caldwell prefers to shop here than in a national chain.
I think it could kill the local economy if we don't try and support the people that are local to us.
Gloins is committed to the livelihoods of his 60 staff.
We might have to incrementally reduce people's hours down, and we might have to stop paying them proportionately, but we're hoping that by the measures we're taking, we'll actually retain all the staff, and then when hopefully things return to normal, whenever that will be, that we'll be able to just start again with the current level of staff.
This is a message from the government and the NHS about how to protect yourself and others from coronavirus.
At the local radio station, director Tim Ashburner fosters community spirit and keeps his finger on the public pulse.
We're going to go through that period of denial, confusion, annoyance, anger, and then sooner or later, within 10 days or so, we'll get that period of acceptance.
But farmer Anthony Mash is defying advice to seniors to stay home.
I can't sit there, I'd go stir crazy.
Mash is 79 years old. 2 years ago, his farm was incinerated. Only the nameplate survived.
And I'm just anxious to see it rebuilt, and I like to watch every brick laid and every nail that's put in.
But Mash has heart problems. He's waiting for surgeons to install a new valve. His immunity system is compromised. He's more vulnerable than most.
I don't think it would hurt if I caught it, actually. I'd probably survive. I think I'm reasonably robust, apart from my aortic valve.
So far, the local hospital has only registered one virus-related death, but health chiefs fear emergency rooms won't be able to cope if Britain follows Italy. Despite the scepticism of some British doctors, the Prime Minister is upbeat about defeating COVID-19 within 3 months. To do so, he insists, Britain must endure the ghost town blues. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Malcolm Brabant in Marlow.
Some news just in. A member of Vice President Pence's staff has tested positive for COVID-19. The White House says neither the president nor the vice president has been in close contact with the person. Now, to help make sense of a week that doesn't seem real to many of us, we turn to the analysis of Shields and Brooks. That is syndicated columnist Mark Shields and New York Times columnist David Brooks. And neither one of you is here with me. We are keeping you at what we think is a safe distance, but we're so glad that you're here. David, how do we make sense of this? I mean, things going on that I think most of us could never have imagined.
Yeah, I sort of have a split-screen reaction to this. When you talk about regular people and how they're acting, I think it's been a remarkably good week and an uplifting week on the whole. This is something, even though we're separated, it's something we're all going through together. And we're having the same experiences and undergoing the same anxieties. And in a weird way, we had to be put apart in order to feel together. And there are so many acts I've heard about or communicated with and heard about of people helping the elderly in their apartment buildings, about people having virtual cocktail parties. I really do think it's a moment where social connection is risen topmost to mind, and people are finding innovative ways to connect with each other. So society-wise, it's a good moment. Politically, I'm a little less sanguine. I think President Trump has had much improved, but his neuroses and narcissism still show up and still give me pause.
And I want to ask you both about that in a minute. But for now, Mark, how are you making sense of all this?
Judy, I'm not sure how much sense I can make of it. I mean, I don't disagree with David's assessment, but to me, what has been most revealing is revealed by the Wall Street Journal NBC poll is almost a political divide on the crisis. And that is that Republicans, particularly President Trump's most ardent supporters, have been quite resistant to accepting that this was a crisis, and in part because of the denigration of the government, by the administration, and by previous conservative efforts, very little trust or confidence in our collective action. Whereas Democrats have been far more, perhaps because of their skepticism about President Trump, have been far more willing to accept that this is a global, national, and personal crisis for all. So that's been, we're in political silos, and usually, historically, crises have sort of brought us together. And that, beyond the acts of individual kindness, has not occurred yet politically.
How do you see that divide out there, David? How serious is it?
Partly, we just see through tribal lenses these days. Partly, it has to do with population density. It's the denser places that are reacting more quickly, where I think people are a little more alarmed. Partly, it is distrust of the media more on the Republican side. But I do think, at the end of the day, we're about to enter, we're not in the Italy phase yet. When we get to the Italy phase, we're going to be terrified. And there will be scary moments. And I'm hopeful that everybody in the country, regardless of political belief, will seize on that and say, oh, yes, this is super real.
Mark, how are you sizing up the leadership we're seeing this week, whether it's coming from the White House, from the governors? What are you seeing out there?
Well, the president's mood has changed, whether it was the intervention by Tucker Carlson or just the weight of empirical evidence and listening finally to scientific voices in his own vicinity. The president's manner has been more serious and more somber. At the same time, we come back to what was identified as both a strength and a problem of his in the 2016 campaign that remains, and that is, the question is, do you take what Donald Trump says literally or seriously? And that Selena Zito, the reporter and columnist, wrote in 2016 that Donald Trump's supporters took him seriously, but not literally, and his critics took him literally, but not seriously. Ideally, what you want in a leader at a time, especially a time of crisis, is somebody both that you can take seriously and take literally. And the president has just been corrected so many times on his misstatements, whether we have 15 cases and it's going down to 0, that everybody can get a test, we're on the verge of a vaccine, and then the correction and amplification comes out that it does, I think, cripple him as an effective spokesperson. And just add to that, his attack today on Peter Robinson, as counted earlier in the news hour, was just symptomatic of that attitude and that ability to be comforter-in-chief, consoler-in-chief, teacher-in-chief that is part of the presidency.
David, how much does what is going on with the president matter at a time like this? And what about some of the governors who people are looking to and making different assessments of?
No, even on his best day, the president is unnerving. The fact that he lashed out at the reporter who asked a very simple and softball question, well, how would you comfort people who are afraid? First of all, he revealed that it was all about himself. He assumed the fear must be because he wasn't doing a good job. And then he was sort of triggered by the idea of empathy. And so that was just unnerving. To me, I worry about actual production. Are we actually producing tests? That, to me, is still an unanswered question. We cannot lock down our entire society for an indefinite period of time. We have to move to this total lockdown, which we have to do right now, to a process where we test people, we test everybody, and the people who have the infection are isolated and the rest go on with their lives. And so, to me, it's the actual production of stuff. You know, when Dwight Eisenhower was running U.S. forces in World War II, he spent an enormous amount of time on landing craft. It was like the dull logistical things that you need to get a process, an institution to work in response to a crisis. And I frankly don't have confidence that we're doing those dull logistical things right now.
Well, that's something the White House has been talking about for sure, Mark, and Congress is also focusing on that. They're looking at legislation to address the health and medical urgent issues out there, as well as the economy with so many people out of a job. What do you see coming from Congress? Is it moving fast enough? Are the political divides, speaking of divides, are they going to be so great as to, do you think, be able to even find a remedy here?
I think they will act, Judy. I think the crisis is such that they'll find it in their own interest as well as the national interest to act. Just one sidebar, and that is, Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, deserves a shout out for his leadership, as does Mike DeWine, even though controversially closing the primary on Tuesday. I think he's shown leadership, the Republican governor of Ohio. But I think the Congress is, Judy, I think we're seeing the divide philosophically, politically, as to where the money should go. I'm always kind of fascinated by the captains of industry who in good times believe that everything that's good is their own doing and that all profits should be privatized, but in bad times and catastrophe are run with a tin cup to the federal government to socialize their losses. I just have a simple proposal, and that is, fine, if the airlines want the American people to underwrite them, to take them over, they become a public entity, and therefore that the CEO is paid at the same rate as a member of Congress, $174,000. I mean, the idea of subsidizing $11 million salaries, I'm not talking about flight attendants or machinists or mechanics, I'm talking about people making $11 million, that they should be subsidized by taxpayers who themselves are beleaguered and besieged and scared.
What about that?
Is unacceptable.
I'm sorry. What about that, David? We had the economist Ken Rogoff on the NewsHour last night telling Paul Solman this is going to be a recession like nothing we've ever seen. In other words, we may be looking at a need for trillions and trillions of dollars.
Yeah, and I think the Congress has at least responded with the right scope of size. Starting at $1 trillion, we may have to go up to $2 trillion. The thing I would say is I've been reading about past pandemics. People in these fearful times are extremely sensitive to inequality, that somebody's getting better treatment than them. And so when you write the legislation, it has to go to those who need it most, those who are lower down the income scale. I think it should be capped at a certain income. It should be in the form of unemployment insurance and small business relief so they can keep meeting their payrolls. And it should be in the order of $1.5 trillion or even $2 trillion. I'm sort of shocked that the Republicans wrote their one bill and the Democrats are going to come back with another. It seems like in a moment of emergency, they could actually write the same bill together.
Well, speaking of unfairness, Mark, the reports today about Senator Richard Burr of North Carolina, Senator Kelly Loeffler of Georgia selling stock back in January when they first heard privately about how bad coronavirus was going to be. They both say they didn't do anything wrong, nothing illegal, but people are asking questions.
Judy, it's a time, especially as picking up on David's point, when 49 members of the Utah Jazz basketball team and company immediately get tested, while hundreds of frontline healthcare workers can't even get tested. You know, there is special privilege and special treatment being shown, which the president seemed strangely indifferent to when the question was posed to him. And I think if this is blood money, that's all you could say. If in fact they had a private briefing and then sold their stocks, and you know, Senator Loeffler, that's fine. Somebody else did it. I have a private advisor doing this. I don't care. I mean, this is. If this is the case, that you were informed of what was happening and unloaded stocks that looked like they were going to be losers and took a profit, that truly is unacceptable. It is blood money and has to be pursued and prosecuted.
David.
Yeah, the thing that's going to determine success or failure in this crisis is one thing, it's social solidarity. It's the idea that we're all in this together, that we're all looking out for each other. Nobody's trying to screw anybody else. And that requires what I think we're seeing on the ground level, which is people actually reaching out to each other and feeling connected with their neighbors they may not have known. But it also requires leadership from the top, leadership of empathy. It requires a sense that everything is surrendered to the common good. And that's just that we enter this crisis with all those things, all the social solidarity levels at such low ebb that we have no luxury here. We just have to develop it and have to grow it in the worst possible way. And obviously what those senators did, or anything that looks like privateering, even if it's wrong, that is unacceptable. Yeah, so I mean, we've just got to keep social solidarity uppermost on our mind.
On that note, David Brooks, Mark Shields, thank you both. And stay safe. And that is the News Hour for tonight. And at the end of this week that's rocked even the toughest among us, I want to again make an appeal that we all listen to our best instincts, take care of your loved ones and yourself. Keep in mind all those who may be in need. I'm Judy Woodruff. Have a great weekend. Thank you. Stay safe and good night.
Major funding for the PBS NewsHour has been provided by Fidelity Investments, BNSF Railway, Consumer Cellular, American Cruise Lines, the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation.
Good evening. I'm Judy Woodruff on the NewsHour tonight, bracing for the surge. New infection counts in the U.S. soar as the entire populations of California and New York are ordered to stay at home. Plus, accusations emerge against sitting U.S. senators who appear to have profited off the pandemic. Then COVID-19 and the crown. The coronavirus spreads through Great Britain. How citizens there are adjusting to a nation transformed.
We're going to go through that period of denial, confusion, annoyance, anger, and then sooner or later, within 10 days or so, we'll get that period of acceptance.
And it's Friday. Mark Shields and David Brooks analyze a week unlike any other in living memory, one that has fundamentally altered the course of American life. All that and more on tonight's PBS NewsHour.
Major funding for the PBS NewsHour has been provided by
moving our economy for 160 years. BNSF, the engine that connects us.
When it comes to wireless, Consumer Cellular gives its customers the choice. Our no-contract plans give you as much or as little talk, text, and data as you want. And our U.S.-based customer service team is on hand to help. To learn more, go to consumercellular.tv.
American Cruise Lines, Fidelity Investments,
The John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, fostering informed and engaged communities. More at kf.org.
and with the ongoing support of these institutions. And friends of the NewsHour. This program was made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
More of the country is closing down tonight, trying to contain the coronavirus pandemic. New York State and Illinois have now joined California in taking that step, with more states expected to follow. Meanwhile, President Trump invoked emergency powers to move medical supplies into place as quickly as possible, as U.S. infections topped 15,000, with more than 200 deaths. William Brangham begins our coverage.
In much of California, stay-at-home orders have already brought much of public life to a halt. And today, those orders expanded statewide. Governor Gavin Newsom asked the entire state, 40 million people, to stay home. He cited an analysis that half the state could be infected in the next 8 weeks if more aggressive moves weren't taken. So he ordered that nothing but the most essential activities continue.
We will have social pressure that will encourage people to do the right thing, just a nod and look saying, hey, maybe you should reconsider just being out there on the beach, being 22 strong at a park. It's time for all of us to recognize as individuals and as a community, we need to do more to meet this moment.
It's unclear how the new orders will be enforced, but it's one of the most drastic.
Good evening, I'm Ian Hannamansing. Tonight, Canada reaches a grim coronavirus milestone.
You must have been so scared.
A dozen deaths, more than 1,000 infections, as Canada turns to a wartime strategy to produce medical supplies.
There's potential for Côte-Saint-Luc to be an epicenter for the virus.
A Quebec mayor thinks quarantine may be the answer for his city, bracing for a surge in cases. Big banks promised mortgage relief, but responded with delays and denials.
We're not going to be able to pay.
And what about renters? 70 million Americans ordered to stay home.
I am not kidding about this.
And China declares victory over the virus, but a second wave could be coming. This is The National. After an already difficult week, COVID-19 is hitting this country even harder tonight. Canada has now moved past 1,000 cases, 214 new infections reported today alone. That is the highest one-day tally since the pandemic was declared. And with emergency declarations from coast to coast to coast, a massive mobilization effort is now forming to try to fight the spread. Ottawa joining forces with industry to mass produce medical equipment on a wartime scale. Some Quebec hotels will donate unused rooms to relieve pressure on hospitals. Edmonton's Expo Centre will double as an illness overflow and homeless shelter. And Canada's military is now planning for a crisis that could last at least a year. Now, despite the big jump in cases today, the concern is the real surge hasn't hit yet. And so the government is kicking its response into high gear. David Cochran leads our coverage tonight.
It is in these challenging times that we also see what we're made of.
Not only what Canadians are made of, but what Canadians can make.
We are launching Canada's plan to mobilize industry to fight COVID-19.
It's a big fight, so these ministers are setting up a system to buy and build what Canada needs.
The situation is fluid and evolving rapidly. Our goal is to be over-prepared.
There are still medical supplies on the market, and Canada is buying bulk.
We have been able to secure 11.3 million N95 masks, which is over and above the order that we received for 7.3 million, with deliveries beginning immediately.
They've also bought 550 ventilators and are looking for more. But buying isn't a long-term solution.
Every other country in the world that is preparing like ours is trying to get those items too.
As more of the world shuts down, global supply chains collapse. Some countries are banning the export of medical supplies.
And this country's industrial policy will be refocused, for the time being, to prioritize the fight against COVID-19.
The plan is to create a domestic supply chain. The first link, agreements with 3 companies to ramp up production of protective equipment, ventilators, and portable testing kits. Nearly 6,000 companies have offered help, including ones that make auto parts.
So our government will help these companies shift production from auto parts to medical supplies.
It's a multi-billion-dollar plan to build a COVID-19 industrial complex. The big question that can't be answered right now is whether all of this will be enough. Other countries have seen their systems and their supplies completely overrun. And while Canada has had more time to prepare, the virus here still hasn't reached its peak. David Cochran, CBC News, Ottawa.
The Prime Minister also had an update for Canadians still trying to return home.
We're in discussion with Canadian Airlines to help Canadians stranded abroad come home. We will have more details to share, but the first flight will be picking up Canadians from Morocco this weekend.
He also announced the closure of the Canada-U.S. border to all non-essential travel effective midnight tonight, though commercial travel will continue. Trudeau also announcing a bilateral deal to turn back all migrants attempting to enter Canada away from official border crossings. There were no new deaths in Canada linked to COVID-19, although a Canadian in quarantine after catching the virus on the Diamond Princess did die in Japan. And some provinces saw substantial increases in the number of confirmed cases. In BC, 77 new infections reported today, Ontario 60, Alberta 49, Quebec reporting 18 new cases, and one city in that province especially uneasy tonight. Allison Northcott shows us why.
I bring having my meals brought up.
Lillian Horowitz is self-isolating after a fellow resident at this assisted living center tested positive for COVID-19.
I'm not to answer the door to anybody, and what can I do?
The mayor of Côte-Saint-Luc, a city on the island of Montreal, says there are at least 4 cases there, and he's worried.
The virus can spread very quickly. And because we have all these religious institutions where gatherings were going on until a few days ago, and we have so many snowbirds returning to our community, we know there's potential for Côte-Saint-Luc to be an epicenter for the virus.
The mayor is urging the province to close all non-essential businesses and to consider a quarantine in his city if cases go up. Côte-Saint-Luc is densely populated with a large Jewish community and a high concentration of seniors. One of the people infected attended a wedding with 400 guests held last week at this synagogue. All guests now instructed to self-isolate for 14 days.
The world has changed so drastically in the 8 days since that wedding took place. And at the time of the wedding, even until the next day, none of the synagogues in Montreal had yet closed. And the following morning, we made the decision to close.
This synagogue wrote to members to warn there are cases here, too, and told people who recently attended to stay home.
The general message went out to all because everybody is connected to somebody that is a senior or is compromised, whether they know it or not, they have a connection.
Montreal Public Health says all religious groups should stop all gatherings.
Religious groups are vectors of transmission, are important vectors of transmission. Please follow the order.
The mayor of Côte-Saint-Luc says synagogues there have now done that, but says it's a shame it didn't happen sooner. Allison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
And while many Canadians cope with losing daily customs and routines, others are coping with grief of losing loved ones. Ellen Morrow has some of their stories.
Sean Cunnington was just 51 years old, a musician, a family man, and another life lost to COVID-19.
You must have been so scared.
Tommy Dorian was Cunnington's bandmate. Cunnington had an underlying condition, chronic leukemia. No one knows yet how he contracted the virus.
If it's not a lesson as to how easily it can affect anybody, I don't know what is.
COVID-19's toll on Canada is growing. 82-year-old Mariette Tremblay died at a long-term care facility in Quebec. On Facebook, her granddaughter wrote, "We are imploring Quebecers and the whole world to show good citizenship, social responsibility, and stay at home."
I went public.
Stephanie Carvin echoes that plea.
But I wish I could be there for my grandmother and reassure her that, we love her.
Her grandmother in an Ontario care facility is sick and awaiting COVID-19 test results. And to protect residents, visitors are no longer allowed at the home.
It's just so stressful not to be with your loved ones while they're sick, and she's not alone. But it's hard because, in so many ways she has to be right now because of this situation.
A situation just beginning. Canada's major cities locked down, anxiety on the rise.
We're social animals, but we're also animals of routine. So when those routines are broken, whether it's, a gathering, whether it's going to the gym, it's really disconcerting because we find comfort in the familiar.
Comfort for Cunnington's loved ones is being found in memory. Dwayne Lau, another bandmate, was a longtime friend.
He was one of the most genuine, honest people that I've ever known, and somebody that has always been willing to help.
Now they want others to help slow the spread of COVID-19. Ellen Morrow, CBC News, Toronto.
The pandemic is also taking a toll on Canada's workforce. Today, Cirque du Soleil said it's laid off 95% of its workforce, including more than 1,300 head office staff. We have already told you about 40,000 auto workers hit by shutdowns, the layoffs of more than 5,000 Air Canada cabin crew, and 1,100 Irving shipyard workers. But the coronavirus is boosting some retail, including Walmart Canada, which said today it wants to immediately hire 10,000 workers for its stores and distribution centers, saying there's a lot of work and we need you. But for those who still go to work, there's mounting concern for their health and their potential to spread the virus. Chris Glover looks at the tension that's creating.
Up close at a construction site during a pandemic.
There is no such thing as social distancing on a job site.
Morgan Signini owns a metal fabricating company, already uneasy about keeping his workers on the job when a developer sent him this letter saying Ontario is not shut down and obligations still must be met.
That was really disturbing. I went to bed with a heavy heart, just thinking how I could put my employees in that position.
The developer told CBC News the letter was meant to provide much needed clarity on everyone's continued responsibilities.
I need to work.
For some, the paycheck is worth the risk.
I think it's okay because I work outside.
But for how long?
I won't hesitate to shut anything and everything down once I get the advice.
Screening and sanitizing is crucial at Service Canada locations. 500,000 Canadians applied for assistance this week. Under 27,000 is normal. John Minoru bailed on his application this morning, fearful of catching the infection in a crowd of strangers. But he's back this afternoon with gloves.
I was worried because I tried online, but it's all clogged.
A new release drew thousands to EB Games across Canada.
I'm actually living with my grandparents right now, so I have to be a little bit extra careful.
After a CBC story this week, precautions were taken inside their stores.
We were limiting to how many people were coming in at a time.
Officials condemned the retailer.
You're putting everyone else into danger.
Late today, CBC learned all EB Games stores will close indefinitely, but Signini fears officials are putting people in danger by allowing so many to keep working, potentially spreading the virus.
It's going to be actually crippling, even more crippling later.
Shut down work now, he says, before it's no longer a choice. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
Manitoba Premier Brian Pallister took direct aim at businesses that refuse to abide by social distancing guidelines, asking Manitobans to take each other's safety and well-being into their own hands.
I encourage Manitobans, as you come across a situation where people are not observing the social distancing rules, I'd like you to go on the internet and tell everybody not to shop there. Don't go there. Don't honor that kind of behavior. In fact, it's a dishonor. I'd encourage each of you in the media and all of your viewers and listeners to think of others right now, to contact them. Make sure that they have a sense of being connected to you. Make sure that they're able to be confident that they're part of a world that isn't just their room. Do this. This will be appreciated. Thank you. We'll beat this thing.
Oh, the emotion there from the Premier's sign of how seriously governments are taking this. Let's bring in Dr. Alison McGeer, an infectious disease specialist with Mount Sinai Hospital in Toronto and a veteran of the SARS outbreak that began in 2002. And Dr. McGeer, things have been changing so rapidly across Canada. From your perspective, what else would you like to see from governments and from people?
Well, I think from government, there's just a limit to how much people can do. Obviously, we'd like to see more testing. There's a whole bunch of things we'd like to see come faster. But the truth is, I think in general, in government, people are working just as fast and as hard as they can. And I'm not sure that we can do much more. I do think from the population point of view, from all of us thinking about social distancing, that there is still room to move, that it takes a while to wrap your head around social distancing. It's really hard to think, I should try not to go to the grocery store today because it feels so innocuous just making small trips. And I think the hard part about social distancing is that any one thing you do is really low risk. But when you sum all of the things you do over all of the people in Canada, then suddenly we're in trouble. And so I'd really like to see people doubling down on not going out and maintaining social distance. I think that will help the most.
Well, to use your words, there is literally room to move on that. Stand by. We're going to come back to you later on in the newscast. Thanks. So COVID-19 having a major impact as each province and city looks to manage the virus. Anita Bath is tracking stories from communities across Canada for us.
Ian, let's start in Nova Scotia, where there is one new case today, bringing the total to 15. While that may not seem like a lot compared to other provinces, the Premier is urging people not to become complacent.
As Dr. Strang has said many times, we're at the front end of this. This is coming to our province at a greater rate, and we need to make sure we continue to do the due diligence that we've been doing. And caring for one another is probably as important as any medical intervention we're going to make.
To reduce the risk of drug shortages, pharmacies in Nova Scotia are limiting patients to a 30-day supply rather than a 60 or 90. New Brunswick is putting in the same type of limit on prescriptions. Word today, schools there are also staying closed indefinitely. Now, there are no new cases of COVID-19 in New Brunswick, but testing will increase with 13 new clinics opening up.
This week, we are ramping up. We are increasing our capabilities. So not just in terms of the number of clinics that exist, but the throughput will be able to be increased as well.
Okay, and there's a warning tonight for people in PEI. The province's second case of COVID-19 traveled on a flight from Toronto to Charlottetown on March 11th. Anyone who was on that Air Canada flight 7564 is now being asked to self-isolate. And in every province, Sobeys is installing plexiglass shields to protect cashiers at its stores. This includes Sobeys stores, Safeway, IGA, Foodland, and Freshco, as well as some of its pharmacies, convenience stores, gas stations, and liquor stores. The company says we've looked across the world at best practices, and these shields stand out as strong safety precaution. They will not be in every store immediately, but we will install them as quickly as we can. And I do want to point out one more thing. Starbucks now says it will only offer delivery and drive-through at most locations across Canada for the next 2 weeks. Back to you, Ian.
All right, Anita, thank you. To the United States now, where tonight more than 70 million people, that's nearly 1 in 5 Americans, are being ordered to stay home after several states took extraordinary steps to slow the coronavirus. California, New York, Illinois, and Connecticut are ordering residents to shelter in place. They account for more than 10,000 of the more than 19,000 cases nationally. Katie Simpson explains.
The urgent message to stay home appears to finally be getting through. In California, the notoriously busy highways are nearly empty. The hustle and bustle of New York is at a standstill. Governors in 4 states have now asked residents not to go out unless absolutely necessary.
This is not life as usual. And accept it and realize it and deal with it.
The president is supportive of the moves by the individual states, but a nationwide lockdown is not in the works. At his daily briefing, Donald Trump focused on what he sees as the positive, highlighting a malaria drug he says could be used to treat coronavirus patients.
I feel good about it. That's all it is, just a feeling. I'm a smart guy. I feel good about it.
The top doctor on the task force is not as optimistic because there is no science to show it's effective.
It's the hope that it will work versus proving that it will work.
Trump has become increasingly agitated at his daily briefings when reporter questions force him to acknowledge this situation is rapidly getting worse.
What do you say to Americans who are watching you right now who are scared?
I say that you're a terrible reporter. That's what I say.
Fear is very real for Americans who are now out of work.
I'm just trying to be as normal as possible. I already had a lot going on.
This is Danielle. How can I help you? This Indiana mom is among half the staff at a cafe laid off in order to keep the place running.
It was probably the hardest thing I've ever done as a manager. Because there's just nothing I can do.
More Americans are expected to be in that same position. Experts predict 2 million people will likely apply for unemployment benefits next week. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
The big banks say help is coming for people with mortgages, but what about renters?
If there's no money coming down the pipeline, we can't be sure that we can pay our rent.
Up next, the push to delay rent day. And what happens to family doctor offices during a pandemic?
I don't have what I need to do the job safely.
Plus 3 cheers for nurses.
Thank you, healthcare workers!
the unique and socially distant way that people across Canada are showing support. We're back in 2. To the BC viewers who've just joined us, welcome. The spread of COVID-19 has changed the financial positions of many Canadians, with the source of the next paycheck now suddenly unclear and the next mortgage or rent payment still looming. We'll talk about renters in a moment, but banks have agreed to give homeowners some relief. Aaron Saltzman looked into how that offer is working in practice.
My wife called the 1-800 number for the Bank of Montreal.
Evan McFattridge's wife was laid off when the Halifax area restaurant she works at closed.
She was told that our mortgage was too new to qualify for deferral.
Not what he expected to hear.
I've been in regular communications with the CEOs of Canada's large banks.
Last week, the finance minister asked the big banks to defer mortgage payments for people suffering financially due to COVID-19. But many Canadians say they're encountering an opaque and seemingly arbitrary process, which often ends with them being denied a deferral.
Just huge anxiety.
Alison Whittle and her husband are both in isolation, both showing symptoms and both out of work. But when she called her bank, a subsidiary of Laurentian Bank, she was told it was business as usual.
That was very triggering. I got quite upset because it's not business as usual. We're not going to be able to pay.
The experience may be different with lenders that aren't one of the big banks. Even before the finance minister's request, this Vancouver credit union was offering 3-month deferrals.
One of the phrases that we use in our organization for times like this is forbearance, not foreclosure.
Now she says they're offering the full 6 months with little more than a quick phone call or email. CBC News asked each of the big banks about their deferral process. CIBC, Scotiabank, and TD each just repeated their commitment to working with people on a case-by-case basis. RBC didn't respond at all. BMO says it has now reached out to the subjects of our story. After the McFattridges got that call from BMO, the bank granted them a 6-month deferral. Alison Whittle just got a call back as well. She, too, got her deferral. Aaron Saltzman, CBC News, Toronto.
While homeowners can get relief on a case-by-case basis, Thomas Douglas shows us that those who rent have even fewer options.
Like so many small business owners, Joe Rutherford has seen his income nosedive, dropping in recent days as much as 85%. He walks dogs and hires others to do the same, but now worries about the roof over his head in Toronto's notoriously pricey rental market.
If there's no money coming down the pipeline, we can't be sure that we can pay our rent. And I mean, it's so scary.
He started an online petition demanding the cancellation of rent and mortgage payments during the COVID-19 crisis. It's received more than 500,000 signatures, with Canadian renters asking for immediate government help.
I think the easiest, simplest thing to do would be to have a package where tenants just don't have to pay rent. They can use that money to live and to take care of themselves.
The federal government is pledging money for low-income families, but when it comes to relief for renters, it's up to the province to decide, with BC, Ontario, and New Brunswick suspending some evictions for now.
No tenant in the province of Nova Scotia whose income has been impacted as a result of COVID-19 can be evicted by their landlord.
Though some tenants fear unpaid rent will eventually lead to mass expulsions. Consider these renters in Toronto who say neighbors received eviction notices just this week. A mistake, says the landlord, but many property owners are still demanding payment.
So for us, it is important that things keep moving, of course. We cannot afford just to not receive any rents.
Virginie Michaud owns this duplex and depends on the income from the one unit she rents out.
We're counting on that because we don't have a lot of cushion in our budget.
This crisis is squeezing everyone, and it only gets worse at the first of the month. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Toronto.
Next, we look at what we know about exactly how this virus is spreading, the science of COVID-19 right after the break. And in China, celebrations and signs of victory, but is it all premature? And as we've been doing all week, we put your questions to the experts, including this one. Do I need to wipe down delivered groceries and packages? The answer to that and more after the break. In Asia, there are countries that have managed to flatten the curve, but not yet in Europe or the United States, and right now, not here either. Canada's first case was on January 25th. That number at first climbed slowly, 29 days later hitting 10 cases, but it took only another 17 days for Canada to pass 100 known cases, and just 9 more to pass the 1,000 mark today. Some of that acceleration might be a reflection of increased testing, but the virus is also rapidly spreading. Vicadopia dives into the latest research on how.
Much of the biology of this coronavirus is still a mystery, though scientists believe it does a better job of sticking to our cells than the coronavirus that caused the 2003 SARS outbreak. That gives it an edge in quickly infecting people. Those people can go on to infect others before showing symptoms, which could take up to 2 weeks. A new study of recovered COVID-19 patients in Wuhan gives us a clearer picture of how long those symptoms typically persist. Coughing lasts 19 days, fever breaks after 12 days, but midway through fever, respiratory problems develop and last as long as the cough. Patients still tested positive for the coronavirus for a median of 20 days, but in some cases it was as long as 37 days. Research is still emerging, but critical for scientists.
We are hanging off of every word that comes out.
Dr. Isaac Bogosh says it's possible people can still infect others after they've recovered, but odds are they won't.
As the clinical condition progresses and as people start to recover and get better, they're likely less contagious to those around them. And ultimately, they'll stop shedding virus and they won't be contagious to anybody.
And where that virus is shed may determine how long it remains a threat. A new study found that it can survive on porous surfaces for hours and on hard surfaces like plastic and stainless steel for days. And there's still no consensus on whether recovered patients can get reinfected.
One oddity of coronaviruses is that the antibodies that we make don't seem to persist for as long as antibodies we make to other infections, like influenza, for example.
Influenza is relatively well understood and monitored. If there's one thing that's being learned from this pandemic, is the need to continue studying coronaviruses, even after the outbreak is over. Vicadopia, CBC News, Toronto.
The World Health Organization is trying to find some positive news in this pandemic, and here's what the head of the WHO had to say about the city known as Ground Zero for COVID-19.
Wuhan provides hope for the rest of the world that even the most severe situation can be turned around.
Wuhan reported no new cases yesterday. However, it still has 6,100 others, with more than 2,000 people in critical condition. But as Sasha Petrusik explains, that hasn't stopped China from declaring victory over the virus.
The pictures on state TV are spectacular. Nanjing skyscrapers lit up with portraits of doctors and nurses, heroes of what China calls its people's war against a virus Beijing has now declared defeated. Recovered patients are applauded as they're shown heading home from hospital. Medical workers, too, paraded as they fly out of a Wuhan that's still locked down. Now we are returning home, so I'm really excited as we won the victory over the epidemic, the medical worker says. Life in most of China, including the streets and stores of Beijing, is slowly returning to a kind of normal, though carefully checked by volunteers with thermometers at every corner, still nervous. Indeed, while Chinese officials say they've seen no new domestic cases in days, they say imported cases are at a record high.
So for China, I think it's premature to celebrate. There will be a second wave in China because I think it's unavoidable. There's going to be silent transmission, which eventually reaches to the level that's detected.
A second wave bouncing back from Europe and Asia on the medical staff who haven't had much of a breather, and a population of hundreds of millions who suffered through the lockdown.
To try to stop that, China finds itself imposing ever more stringent limits on who can come in and how long they need to be quarantined. Exactly the kind of measures Beijing denounced when other countries imposed them on Chinese citizens just a few weeks ago. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Tokyo.
Since the COVID-19 outbreak began to accelerate in Canada, we know that many of you have questions, a lot of questions about how to keep safe, how to keep your family safe, about what is or what isn't relevant in this situation. So we've been committing time on each show to finding those answers. And joining us again is Dr. Alison McGeer, an infectious disease consultant with Sinai Health System, and another familiar face these days, Dr. Isaac Bogosh, infectious disease specialist at University Health Network. As we've mentioned, lots of questions for you. And Dr. Bogosh, let's begin with you. And let's talk about face masks. Have the guidelines for civilians, ordinary people, using face masks changed?
No, they really haven't. We firmly believe that people in the general public should not really be wearing face masks because it doesn't really provide any additional protection against getting this infection. If someone's infected with the virus, it's very helpful that they wear a face mask to help prevent them from spreading it to other people, but they're not really going to prevent people from getting infected.
Dr. Muir, let's go on to the next question, which is about deliveries. The specific question was about when people get groceries delivered, should they be wiping it down when it comes to their home?
You know, what's more important than wiping it down is cleaning your hands afterwards. So I think, you know, in general, when you've come into contact with something from the outside, another person that you have to come into contact with for some reason, the answer is after that, you should be cleaning your hands. That's more important than wiping it down. Most wiping down doesn't do nearly as much good as getting soap and water or alcohol hand rub on your hands.
A question for both of you, and I'll start with you, Dr. McGeer. In terms of the amount of testing we're doing in this country, is it enough?
You know, we'd all like to be doing more testing, but there's a limit to how much testing we can do because of the supply chain for all the things we need to do testing. You know, we've just asked the people who supply the swabs, the reagents for the testing, the machines, our staff to do many, many more tests in every country around the world simultaneously. And so ramping up production to have as many tests as we like is really, really difficult. So we're trying to make sure that we're doing the tests we need to be doing and not doing the tests we don't need to be doing. And I think people are doing a pretty good job of that. But it does mean that for people who are mildly ill, where they'd like to know the result of the test, and we might also like to know, but it's not going to change what we do. We're saying, bear with us, can't be tested now, you just need to self-isolate at home.
Dr. Bogosh, you know what? I'm going to skip ahead to a different question now because we're running out of time. I think a lot of people have this one. Somebody wrote in to say that they were visiting the United States. They've come back. They have their 14 days of self-isolation. But during that time period, can they go outside for a walk? Can they take their pet for a walk, or are they stuck inside?
No, you're supposed to stay at your home. It's very clear on the Public Health Agency of Canada webpage what exactly self-isolation means. You're supposed to stay in and around your house. It's not meant to be, you're not meant to be walking down the street or walking your dog. You can stay in your house, and I'm sure you can go outside in front of your house, but you're really supposed to stay around the home for that time.
Lots more questions. We're not going to get to them tonight, but Sunday on the next National, we certainly will pick up where we left off. Thanks to both of you.
Anytime.
Nice.
So we will be asking your questions about COVID-19 each night going forward. So you can send us questions. You can message us directly on Instagram at CBC The National, or you can send an email at thenational@cbc.ca. Next, we'll take you inside the warehouse of a big Canadian retailer to find out how they're coping after all that panic shopping that we saw this week. But first, she may be in self-isolation, but that's not stopping Kaylee Dimmock from dancing with dozens of strangers around Halifax. She's hosting daily dance parties on her balcony, and others are joining in online.
It's just a small way to have a little bit of an impact on people and to also bring people together.
She says she's been blown away by the response and plans to keep dancing. Her playlist already lined up for next week.
do for you. Safe travels.
Should be it. All right. Nameplate's on. Too zoomed in right now. Ooh, got a cloak off the first Bob. Hell yeah. Hold up, hold up, hold up. Alright, I'm trying to remember this macro. There it is. Gotta remember this macro real quick. There we go. Alright. Getting our juju back. So we're using a target, last target macro to make the melee weaving a little bit easier. Shoot this dude. Get him close to us. There we go. See that? One button, and we're able to basically melee weave, no problem. Love to see it. Love to see it. The melee weave is real. Oh man, I looked over and we got some more subs. Level 5 complete. We might be in uncharted waters right now, guys. Thank you so much. Sorry, I'm a little delayed here. Just getting used to playing Hunter again. Level 5 hype train complete. What does that even mean, boys? OG with the 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 bits. Thank you very much, OG. Alright. Let me look at this macro. This macro is not working how I want it to right now. Auto shot, target, last target, blood fury, raptor strike, start attack, auto shot. I think this is the right one. Yeah, I think this is it. Okay, I just gotta get used to it. Holy smokes, guys. We just got 22 subs in like the last 10 minutes. That is insane. Bobby Moons with another tier 1 sub. Omni Jackal with 5. Jesus. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. These are trying times. I appreciate all the support. Majorly. Dude, are we setting some kind of record right now? HC Doc coming out of left field with the dropping a 5 bomb as well. Thank you so much, Mr. Doc. I think we might be setting some kind of Twitch record right now. Thank you so much, Doc. Crusader with the 2 months. You would think we just hit 60 in hardcore with all this. Crusader, thank you very much for the 2 months in a row, brother. The druid did die. Yeah, let me link the clip for you. Oh, someone linked it. Finisher. Thank you, brother. Alright. Got all our wolf meat. Let's turn this in. Yeah, Shiki, the druid dead. It was kind of anticlimactic. I changed my name to... Oh, that's you, Crusader. There it is. Okay, now I understand. Thank you so much, Crusader.
You got my
New Hunter, yeah. If you guys could be so kind, there's gonna be a lot of people asking to link the
See you soon.
link the Druid Death.
Safe travels. What can I get for you today? Keep your feet on the ground.
All right. Wait, where's the Oh, we need this quest here for the Trogs. Kind of scuffed out 2 different names. Yeah, I feel you. It's good to see you on Twitch now.
See you soon.
What's up, Lucas? Yeah, here's the clip. Oh, wait, no, that's the other YouTube channel. I think I prefer watching you play Alliance. Alliance is pretty damn cozy, I gotta say. Hold up. This macro is not doing what I needed to do, so let me try this again. So I'm going to shoot this. Right, we're going to melee weave with this dude. So now we're going to shoot this guy. Hit the macro. There we go. Hit it back. Alright, maybe I'm just bad. It's working. It's working. You picked the bad dwarf hair? You think so? Why? Because I'm bald? I like my ponytail flowing in the wind, man. We made a good guy dwarf. Oh, wow. This doesn't drop too often. Trog dagger. I haven't seen this in a minute. Can't use it, but it's interesting. My favorite dwarf hair is the one with the ponytail too, but still have a lot of hair on the front. I was making a lot of dark iron dwarves recently, but I think I'm over it now. I think I'm moving on to something new. We're making the dad dwarf, the cinematic dwarf, a good guy dwarf, a bronze beard, a gray beard. So yeah, the game plan for those of you guys tuning in right now. We're gonna level a dwarf hunter. Professions. I think we're still just gonna go. Oh, actually, what do we go? This is the whole game plan, and this is kind of our test, guys. This dwarf, I want to try to utilize the treasure racial as much as possible. I've never done that in my life. Tried to actually make a very proactive effort to use the treasure finding racial. Even right now, I don't have it equipped. I'm gonna put it on something super high value, so I never. Well, I guess you never have to take it off in hardcore, so it doesn't matter because you don't ever die. But I want to see how good it is. People might say that, oh, you don't need that because you can just go to all the treasure spawns. But do you actually go? Do you actually have the add-on that shows the treasure chest spawns, and do you actually check them? I feel like if you have the dwarf racial, you're going to be way more likely to go get the treasure. And I want to see if it ends up netting us a bunch of potions and a bunch of good stuff. I think it will. I think it's going to be huge. I think it's going to be huge. So profession-wise, probably skinning leatherworking. What do you guys think? I'm amazed you play this game over and over and over again. I know, right? I got my wires crossed as a kid. Your YouTube videos are very good. Thanks, my dude. I appreciate that, man. Space Ape, thanks, man, for the kind words. Skinning leatherworking sounds good, does it? Or was there anything else? Is there anything else juicy that I might be missing? It's got to be skinning leatherworking. Maybe we go engineering mining and don't have track mining, because you can just see the nodes, or is that a meme? No, mining costs too much. Nah. You could go mining to make your own ammo and stuff. I don't know. I don't think I really want to double down on the treasure hunting racial. I want to have it up all the time, and I want to be constantly looking for treasure. I should have made this guy like his name like Treasure Hunter or something. You'll get lots of potions from chests, right? Yeah, absolutely. Herb alch thing is we're not gonna run track herbs, man. We're gonna use track treasure hunting the whole time. We're not taking it off. That's part of this dude's like mission statement as a character. I'm always going for the bronze knives from blacksmithing, so getting smithing the bronze knives, huh? Interesting. I was always curious to see if anybody could make blacksmithing work. Has anybody here done blacksmithing on a hardcore character? I'm really curious to see how it feels. I just don't know that much about it. I feel like it wouldn't be that worth, but... Leveling my Dwarf Hunter non-hardcore, and really discovering how good the treasure passive is in Duskwood. Lots of random chests. See, that's what I'm excited to find out about. We're going to be using this treasure hunting thing. It's going to be hype. BS is okay, but it only rewards you after putting in a lot of work. Thing is, can you actually level blacksmithing significantly up by yourself with no auction house? I feel like it might be the kind of thing where you have to use the auction house to level it up. Because engineering, for example, you have to use the auction house pretty much. It's pretty rough trying to level it without.
See you soon. Well met.
You can't, it just takes years, okay. Blacksmithing is so tedious, sounds like a meme, yeah. So, I mean, skinning leatherworking, are we all on the same page? Chests usually suck? I don't know, man. They give a lot of potions, that's the best thing. They don't drop greens, but they drop potions and they drop grays. And, I don't know, we'll see if we notice any difference in gold. What takes too much time in gold? BS? I know, I mean, a lot of us are kind of doomers on BS. You know, BS is the least popular profession in the game, probably by a large margin, followed by, what do you think? What is the second least most popular? Maybe skinning? Skinning at 60 is probably the least popular, if I had to guess. I don't know, it could be good though. I don't know if a lot of us know about BS. A lot about BS, because we never really give it a shot. Do you want to spend all that time in caves fighting off yellow and orange mobs? You don't have to go in caves, though, to get tin. To get tin, you get it in Southern Barrens. There's a lot of tin. Well, on the Alliance side, yeah. Where do you get tin in the Alliance? No, you might be right on the Alliance side of things. You're probably going into that cave in Red Ridge. On the Horde, there's some strats to get tin. I like smithing. It's just a bad fit for hardcore.
Here there.
Right. Yeah, I like skinning leatherworking.
Watch your back.
Skinning leatherworking would be sweet. I'm hyped for it. And I'm back playing Hunter, man. You love to see Hunter. Tin is wetlands? Yeah. Wait, is it though? I feel like I thought that one time and I went to wetlands. I couldn't find any tin. Are you double clicking to loot in case it's an empty loot table? I'm not even sure what that means, bro. Yeah, I'm pretty hyped for it. Oh, the bag add-on is called Combustor. Yeah, this right here is called Combustor. Hunter is fun to watch if they're melee moving. Yeah, it's pretty fun. I love Hunter. Hunter's like my favorite class right though. Overall, all things considered, so. What is your... Yeah, bag add-on is Combustor, brother. Some in Westfall near the quarry. Yeah, we're not gonna go mining though. I think we're just gonna go leatherworking, skinning, and see how it goes. I saw Grace for days. He was doing leatherworking, and he looked like he was having so much fun on leatherworking. He went and he made his deviate scale belt. I'm not gonna do that. That sounds too OD, but he seems like he was making gear from it and having a really good time from it. What is there to look forward to in leatherworking, guys? While leveling, is there anything you can think of in a hardcore context? You have to keep in mind we're not using the auction house. And one of the big reasons why, just to spell it out for you, is like skinning doesn't require us to look at the mini-map, right? We don't need to put a track skins on or anything like that. So we can basically run the treasure hunting the whole time. Tons to look forward to. I know armor kits is one thing. Just pretty nice and hardcore, just a little touch. What else? Probably just green gear. Is there any other profession other than leatherworking we could use to make kind of raw gold, though, or something? I'm wondering. The only other one I can think of is tailoring. What if we went tailoring, guys? Now, is that a meme? Is there any line where we go tailoring? We go skinning tailoring. Probably not. Tailoring means bags. You can make bags on leatherworking, though. That's the thing. Ammo pouches are leatherworking? I think they are. There we go. The macro's kind of working. See that? That feels pretty good. Still think it's faster to just click, though, honestly. Fuck this macro, man. I'm gonna put it up here. Let me just try to melee weave just regular. I think it's gonna be better. I've been dying to make a macro that works really good for melee weaving. I have yet to find one that feels really comfy. They all feel kind of scuffed. I like just manually doing it. So for example, I'm gonna shoot this. Get it close to us. One more. Now we engage this. See this? This just feels way better. All the target last target macros just feel kind of wonky, bro. They really do. And they don't work with 2+ target. That's another thing too. Ammo pouches, but no general purpose bags. No, leatherworking can make Kodo bags. I know that. You get the recipe from. That's a horde thing though. Maybe Alliance doesn't have one. You can make leatherworking. You can make the Kodo hide bags though. All right, so now we go over here. I would go skin leatherworking for your hunter, yeah. Maybe we can make some nice gear with it. I'm down. Kodo bag is the only one. Wow, okay. What's up, French? Good to see you, brother. How you doing, man? Cargos, you need your class for first aid. Can't do tailoring that easily. Yeah, I think we're just going to skinning leatherworking.
What can I do?
Can't be bad. They go together, you know? It's kind of good RP, too.
What's on your mind?
But yeah, French, the whole point with this dude is we're going to keep this treasure hunting racial on, and we're going to see how much impact it gives us. It could be bad. We'll see. I don't think it's going to be bad, though. I think it's going to be dope. Is double XP on retail or classic? It's on retail.
Great to meet you. What's on your mind?
Let's buy some ammo over here.
Be good.
Get our skills. All agility gear. Is that helpful for Hunter? Oh yeah, agility is super good for Hunter. Did you know you can have 2 pets out at the same time on Real WoW? Yeah, it's been like that for a while, since WoD, right? Oh wait, was it before WoD? When did they add the 2 pets? Pretty sure that was WoD, right?
What's on your
Am I tripping? Hold up,
Great
hold up,
to
hold
meet
up. Why am I blanking on this? Someone's gonna chime in and know. Do I really get monkey? I guess.
Watch your back.
Tu parles français?
Hi.
I know how to say a few things.
Safe travels.
Comment ça va bien? Je m'appelle James. Je m'appelle Cargos. Pamplemousse, that's the most handy thing I know how to say. Grapefruit. Can count like 10 and stuff.
Hi.
We all took French class growing up in the
Watch your back.
States. So people know like a few things. You know, we actually, at my school, in my middle school, we took Chinese class too.
Need assistance?
Took Chinese, French, and Spanish.
Alrighty then.
Alright, let's go back out of here. Hey, is Hunter or Warlock better at 60 for DPS and PvP? It's so hard to say, man. It's tough. It's just, they're just so different, brother. Warlocks will, they're kind of in the same tax bracket of DPS with Hunters in this current phase. I've seen some pretty big pumper Hunters. I'd give the edge to Warlocks, though. PvP, they're both good. In PvP, there's no bad class in PvP. Right? There's no bad PvP class. Highest end pre-mades, they take every class. One of every class. 2 priests, 2 mages, one of every class. So I wouldn't sweat it. For dueling, Warlocks are the pound for pound heavyweight champs when it comes to dueling, but that's specifically SL. And most Warlocks aren't going to play SL. And if you're not playing SL, Hunters might be better. As far as like dueling champs. Probably not though. Warlocks are just insane. Warlocks are just the pound for pound heavyweight champs. I never felt stronger in PvP than playing a Warlock. Just check the clip. Dang, those mobs killed the druid like he used Ted toilet paper on him. I know. It's kind of unfortunate, man. That was the first time I've seen those guys those pats all the way over there. I did not know they could go all the way over. I thought they stuck to the road and they were on the other side of the Barrens by Camp T. It's usually you always see them, right? Oh, dude. Never mind. What's better to level solo? They're both really good to level solo, man. They're both just pretty much the same tax bracket, solo leveling. Change title? The title's been changed for me. It says Fresh Hunter Leveling.
You got my attention.
Maybe just refresh?
What can I do for ya?
Alright, let's go do this Bucket of Bolts quest. Cargos, found your channel about a month ago and really loving your content. Love how interactive you are with your followers. Makes me want to come back and watch more. Keep it up, my man. What a nice thing to say, brother. Thank you, dude. Thanks, man. Little knowledge about Portuguese. Talking to me or someone else? One of my best friends, he lives in Portugal now. He's half Angolan, half Portuguese. So he taught me a little bit of Portuguese. I love Portuguese food, though. I love Brazilian food. I mean, I know a little bit about Portuguese food, like the cod and the seafood is like their main staple, right? Brazilian food, though. My God, you guys know how to make good food. You have Gatherer? I did have Gatherer. I don't know if I re-downloaded it because I got a new PC. I think I did. How much longer are you going to be on? Probably another hour or two, man. Brazilian barbecue? Oh, yeah. Honestly, though, not even that. Like, that is amazing. I don't know if you guys, probably very few of you, have gone to a Brazilian bakery. Random RNG, I used to live in Port Chester, New York, for a little bit of time. And they had this just incredible Brazilian bakery. And it was right by the train station. So before I would go into the city, I would stop by and I would get, you know, They had like 5 for $1 pan de queijo, and then they had these coxinhas, which are like these little crispy, how do you explain it? Like a crispy little morsel, man, and then it was packed with like chicken and kind of some cheese infused with it. They had the non-cheese one too. Golly, dude, that thing was just incredible. I would always get those like my breakfast every morning. You're the only streamer I watch live. I actually put you on in the background while I play to keep my motivation up because of your knowledge and passion for the game. Yo, that's so nice of you to say. Humperdinck, 1979. Good to have you in here, brother. Gotta love the cozy night streams. It is nighttime now, huh? 10:13. Loretta, always in here hanging out, man. Appreciate you, Loretta. Picanha? Oh, yeah. The thing about this bakery. Oh, God. Just thinking back on it. Unbelievable. This bakery, it actually had all the churrascaria meats, but in a bakery, though, so it wasn't that expensive. Because how much you spend when you go to get Brazilian barbecue, at least where I'm from, in the areas I'm from, it's always expensive. That's a big, you know, pain point to go, because you spend like $100 if you go to Fogo de Chão, or you go to even some of the other ones. It's very expensive, man, to go to them. But they had this bakery, and they had all those meats that were rotating. What do you call that? You know, it was almost like a rotisserie meats, all spinning around. The dude would take out that big scimitar, slice off some of the end pieces for you, and give you like a mixed basket of meats. It was like $10 or something. It was like the best deal ever. The Brazilian meat's so good. The sausages too. Can't get that in quarantine. Yeah, it was like a scimitar. You can do churrasco at home. Yeah, I mean, that would require me to have like massive portions of high quality meat in my house though. Yeah, Brazilian food's amazing though. 400 was a good choice. Appreciate it, man. I'm having fun. Your prep stream was awesome. Tons of good advice. Much appreciated. I appreciate you guys telling me that, because I got a lot of pushback on that. Just to let you know. And I honestly kind of regret it. Like, it's not this channel is not appropriate to talk about that kind of stuff. That's why I'm starting this survival channel. I'll link it again. I unlisted the stream and everything like that because, especially for a lot of EU viewers, I gotta say, it does rub a lot of EU viewers in particular the wrong way. Anytime you talk about firearms or anything like that, I definitely understand the cultural differences there. So if you missed the streams earlier, I'm going to start a secondary YouTube channel called Cargo's Survival. I'm not Bear Grylls. I'm not an expert. I'm just a dude like you, and just going through life and trying to. But I'm interested in this stuff, and I have been for a long time. So I'm gonna do content over on that channel as well, and try and keep it light over here. You know, with regard to the survival stuff and all that. So tomorrow I'm gonna make a video on that channel. Here's the link if anybody wants to give it a shot. No content yet though. I just made it like an hour ago. Thanks, bud. Thanks, bud. Cherry pie. I think the pushback is just because people are scared. Makes it easier to blame who are talking about it. Also, though, I mean, this is a very legit point. People play WoW to escape from the reality of the coronavirus. They just want to chill, play WoW, talk about WoW, and not have to worry about that stuff. Do crossbows count as firearms? No. Crossbows are sweet though. The second channel is a great idea, Cargos. I find it interesting, but it's not the same vibe feel. 100%. Yeah, I hear you. And that's coming from French Tech, someone who watches all the streams and is always chilling. It's just a good idea for sure. It makes a lot of sense because it allows me to talk about that stuff unabashedly too, and not like have to beat around the bush or like kind of like skirt around the point. Like you can just go for it. I'm very excited about that. Honestly, time just flies with Cargos and the fam. I love being here with y'all. Loretta, man. The best of people. Hope to meet you someday. For real though, if any of you guys are interested on that type of stuff, and if you want another person to bounce ideas off of or to talk about that stuff, like how to prepare yourself and just best position yourself for everything, hit me up, man. Can help you out. Yeah, you don't want to be apologizing for speaking about what you like to. I know you were looking uncomfortable. Absolutely, French, dude. You know me. You know me by now. 'Cause it feels bad, man, rubbing people the wrong way, you know? People are here for WoW content, so... And it's still gonna slip through the cracks, but I can keep it light. France, can't leave the house unless you win 135 bucks fine. Wow. Wait. What do you mean by that? Go on. Does that mean you can't... But you can leave for groceries, though, right? You can leave for oh, shit. Small brown pouch. Can we get some blessed run in the chat? That's why that emote exists. Blessed run in the chat. Blessed run in the chat. Alright. You know it's a good omen when you get the pouch. The 6 slaughter. There it is. The new emote. Trying it out. Dusting it off. The strongest anti-gun reactions I've heard have been from progressive Americans and not Europeans. Europeans are nice about that, but most don't like guns. No, it's true. It's so true. It's so true. Most people are not gonna write like mean comments. They're just gonna tune out, or they're just gonna head out, because you know, like, you have to be particularly motivated to write something nasty or whatever. It's all good though. No, I hear you, Cielago. I hear you, man. That's why I'm making the second channel, though. I think it's gonna be really good. Living in Canada, the gun regulations are over the top. I'm as licensed as you can get here, but I still can't store my firearm in a way that makes me able to defend my home. You hate to see it, brother. You really do. I really do. Here in Brazil, only farmers, country people have guns. If you don't have a license to use a gun, you can go to jail real easy. Really? Is that a Brazil-wide national policy? Anybody here watch Live League? Live League probably fucked me up, man. Because you watch Live League, you feel like everybody in Brazil is armed. You feel like everybody's an undercover cop and everybody's armed. It's because you watch like a huge amount of CCTV videos from Brazil. I did not know that, brother. You meant legally. Oh, yeah. I see. I see. When can we expect to see the first video on the new channel? I'm hoping tomorrow, man. So the way I'm going to do the new channel, because I can't spend that much time on the new channel, because this is still going to be 95% of my time. Like, this is my bread and butter. This is what I'm most passionate about. I'm like mainly a gamer. The prepper stuff is there, but it's not as important to me as this community. Like this YouTube channel, guys, you know, as sad as that might be to some people, is for sure like the proudest thing I have going for me right now. You know, there's other great, there's other things that I'm just really, this is like the best thing, for me. I don't know. So it's gonna be mainly this. So basically with that in mind is the new channel is gonna be, I'm gonna hit record, I'm gonna talk on a subject, I'm gonna have talking points, I'm gonna end recording and just upload it raw like that. And there's so much topics to talk about that I'm just gonna blast through some videos, man. There's so much I want to talk about. You have a good understanding of these dynamics. It's so true that most people do not engage or speak up on anything. They're consumers and receivers. It's rare people to be an output. Yeah, just think about yourself, right? Most people, here, let's think of an analogy. So when you go to a restaurant and yo, Bobby Moons at the 200, thank you very much, man. When you go to a restaurant, at least personally, let's say you go to a restaurant and you order a steak. Maybe not steak, because steak could be expensive. So maybe if you order an expensive enough steak, it's appropriate to say something. But let's say you just go to a burger place. Get a shitty burger. at least me and probably 90% of other people are not gonna like make a scene out of getting a bad burger. They're just gonna leave. You know, there's more of a medium though. Like my dad and my grandpa, they would be the type of people that sometimes they would say something, and then I just cringe massively. The thing about the different though, my grandpa would say it before he ate the meal or whatever. Like he would say it early. If my dad says anything, it's gonna be like towards the end of the meal as we're leaving. But yeah, it's more rare for people to like speak out on it, and most people are just not gonna go there anymore. My dad is handicapped and makes me take his food back, and it's so embarrassing. Hey man, you gotta own that shit though. That's your pops. But yeah, I know you own that shit. I already know. I hear you. I know it's embarrassing, but you probably just man up and do it. Gotta do it. But you can be proud of that. Cargos, you built a great community here. Thank you, Victor. Some really good people in the chat. If you look at a lot of other streaming communities, they get way more trolls, right? Way more trolls. We don't really get much trolls. People are pretty chill over here. That's why I kind of like being a chill streamer, because I'm not really like a funny guy. I think I'm funny, but I'm funny unintentionally. Like, I do stupid shit and people laugh. I'm stoked for the new channel and see other sides of who you are, Cargos. Hell yeah, Corey. Thanks, man. We plug it again if anybody wants to. Have you tried Brazilian coffee? I think so, man. Wait, I don't even need this guy. I'm not gonna take him. I'm tripping. I think I had Brazilian coffee, but I don't think I had any kind of special thing. So Brazilian coffee, I just have that at the store. Sometimes you go to the store like a 7-Eleven and they'll have a roast that's called Brazilian roast. Maybe that's not real Brazilian coffee though. What is Brazilian real coffee? Because I had Turkish coffee before. Turkish coffee is like a muddy kind of sediment, has sediment in it. I've had Vietnamese coffee before, which is condensed milk into kind of a, it has this metal contraption. It's almost like a pour over, or not a French press. It's like a pour over with this really dark coffee. Then they add condensed milk to it. Let's think about all the national coffees here. American coffee. If you had to define American coffee, and it's most like, because there's, you know, every culture will do coffee in a bunch of ways, but if you had to find the most stereotypical American coffee, it's probably, at least in the minds of a lot of Europeans and stuff, it's probably a super omega venti looking cup with a ton of ice and iced coffee. That's probably what internationally the American coffee staple is seen as, because every time I chill with Europeans and they come to America or something like that, they're always shocked when they see like some tiny girl, like 100 pounds or 110 pounds, come walking out with an iced coffee the size of like her leg or something. You know, like you'll see the coffee sizes, the serving sizes, and then the amount of ice and the iced coffee all make for, that would be my guess if you had to define the American, you know, coffee. Indian filter coffee? No, I have not. Indian filter coffee. Dunkin's iced coffee. Yeah, that's probably what it is. Maybe Starbucks too, though. Hey man, I'm leveling a Warlock. What's better for solo leveling? Voidwalker Imp, level 12? I would use the Voidwalker up until 24, and then you can transfer over to the Succubus and Drain Tank. That's when you get the next rank of Drain Life, and that's when you get all the points in Fel Concentration, and it just makes sense. You can use the Voidwalker all the way up to 30 though, very, very comfortably, because it doesn't have mana issues. You can just keep Torment on autocast, and let's be honest here, not a lot of people are gonna like want to use the Voidwalker if you're tormenting manually every time. And that's what you kind of have to do. 30 plus, you kind of have to do that on the Voidwalker because he just goes boom. And the Torment is like feels less effective at that point. The Druid ended up dying. Yeah, if anybody has the clip. I drink 7-Eleven coffee almost every day, so not hating, but the Brazilian roast is definitely not Brazilian. That's what I'm saying. That's what I was connecting the dots when he said he ever had Brazilian coffee, because I've had Brazilian roast, but it's probably not, you know, anything close to the real thing. Damn, Carver, just watched the death clip. That's big rip, man. Almost makes me think Baron's a no-go for safe hardcore tune. I mean, you have to as Horde, right? You just got unlucky. That was pretty unlucky, right? Let's be honest here.
How are you?
We're by the Wailing Caverns Oasis, and the Pat is over there. I didn't even know they went over there, man. It's all good.
Keep your feet on the ground.
Right. This final quest. Then we out. No sugar, sweet coffee is strange to you? Yeah. I like black coffee now. That doesn't bother me now. I like black coffee. What other international coffees? Is there anything interesting? Your work shows. Cheers. Thank you very much for the 200, man. You've been spoiling me all night, Bobby. Thank you, Bobby, man. Australian coffee. I mean, I'm trying to think of the really like different format coffee. So what is French coffee? If you had to make one defining French coffee, it's probably French press, I would imagine. Maybe not. Maybe cafe au lait. That's tough. That's tough. There's just so many ways to make coffee. I'm well stockpiled on the coffee, though. I gotta say, guys, I made sure not to slack on that department. If I'm not gonna be able to get if I have no coffee, yo, imagine how much does your quality of life decrease if you can't drink coffee, guys. Oh man, that's rough. That is rough. Turkish coffee is definitely unique, absolutely. That's definitely a unique one. 60%. I don't know if it would be 60, but it may be. Can you imagine that? 20. It'd probably be 20%. I'd probably have 20% less quality of life if I had no access to coffee. Maybe that's dramatic. It would be rough though. For real, for real. Waking up every morning and no coffee. Get out of here. The stuff of nightmares. Bobby with another 200. Thank you, man. Just want to support. You've been doing a lot more than support, man. You've been going ham tonight. Thank you so much, Bobby. Then mornings be rough with no coffee. Yeah, I mean, like I said it on stream before. If I don't have coffee, man, in the morning, that's how I know I'm addicted to caffeine. If I don't have coffee when I wake up and walk the dogs, right around 11:30 a.m., I get a mean headache. I get a mean headache. Happens a lot. If you just get caught up with stuff and you just start working or you go to the computer or something, it gets 11:30 and I get a headache. Coffee in the morning for the spike, black tea in the afternoon for the longevity. There it is. Yeah, tea's really great too. I just love beverages. Dick for President just super chatted $4. Thank you so much, man. Even after lunch, impossible to go back to work without a coffee. Otherwise, you're in for a nap. I feel you on that, brother. I feel you. Does black tea even have caffeine, bro? I feel like that's kind of a meme. I don't think I ever got an energy boost from black tea. I love black tea, though. Don't get me wrong. Some English breakfast tea, some PG tips, some, what's the other one I like a lot? PG tips has got to be my favorite. But I don't think it has caffeine. Probably like a trace amount. Okay, so it's 1:30 and I'm leveling a mage and no work tomorrow. Should I chug this rain energy drink and hit 56 from 53 tonight? Thing is, Dabby, if there's no work tomorrow, you might as well just call it early and be more well rested, because here's the thing. If you drink that energy drink, you're probably going to have a lower quality of sleep. Let's be honest here, unless you're some kind of Super Saiyan. You know, you'll probably end up going to sleep later, and it'll just shift things up a little bit. You'll wake up later, and you could have been playing earlier. right? It's also going to be kind of a morale boost. If you just go to sleep early, you're going to feel like you're doing the big brain thing. You're going to wake up tomorrow. It's going to be earlier. You're going to have a nice cup of coffee. I would just chill, man. If you really don't have work tomorrow and you're chilling, it gives you something to look forward to. It's going to make tomorrow feel longer, too. Tomorrow will definitely feel longer if you Be safe all. Another 100 biddies from my man Bobby with the posture check. Appreciate it. I only sleep like hours every day. Yo, what? Put a 1 in the chat if you are on lockdown right now, guys. And what I mean by that is, like, you know, you have orders from the state, or everybody is in, you know, basically for all intents and purposes needs to stay home. Put a 2 if you're not. 1 if you are on lockdown right now. 2 if you are free to go wherever you want, and it's like there's no order in place. That's what I thought. It's gonna be more people that are on lockdown than not, right? Dude, streaming is so sick. This is just insane. If you're not on lockdown, where are you? I think even the Midwest of the United States is on lockdown now, right? Which is insane, because they don't have too many cases. Northern Idaho. Florida is in lockdown, really? You would think Florida would be, you know, with like huge centers like Miami and stuff. You'd think Florida would be one of the first states, right? I would imagine the biggest hotspots that they're trying to lock down would be New York, California, Florida, and maybe Washington? Or maybe Chicago. I'm in Florida. We should be in lockdown because of all the dumb spring breakers. I heard about that, man. I heard the Tide Pod eaters are out there and they're still partying and stuff. That could be fake news, though. You guys actually think there's young people out there still partying and doing crazy shit? I saw that one clip, you know. They keep recycling it on the sensationalist news. They're saying that one dude who's like, "I don't care about COVID, man. It's not gonna stop me from partying, bro." Have you seen the Florida kids partying? I saw that clip, yeah. The beaches are packed? No. What? The beaches are packed? No way, dude. Disney is closed, yeah. You think they would just close the beaches? Wait, what? Well, how would the beaches be back? Yeah, they would just close the beaches. Unless they snuck onto the beaches. Damn kids. People really have that attitude, though. That is why the cases are rising so fast now. Really, damn. That's insane. I heard a story about how a lot of French people, they weren't taking it seriously for a couple days. They made the order, but everyone thought it was kind of a meme or something. They thought it was a joke, and they were still out and about. And now they're just starting to take it seriously now. You never know what to believe. Those are the type of stories that really could be fake news. I'm not really a person to call fake news that often. But those are the type of stories that they have the ability to, like, fake news that, like, kind of blow it out of proportion. Cases are rising so fast because people are starting to get tested now. Yeah, it's true. So, I mean, all this is kind of par for the course. People knew it was going to increase a lot with everyone getting tested. If you're looking for a guiding light, guys, in this, you know, trying time, I would look to South Korea. South Korea is sort of the big inspiration right now. South Korea is goals. I don't really trust the Chinese numbers, personally. Nothing against China. It's just those numbers seem extremely suspect to me. That you just go from having the massive amount of cases to completely... The largest country in the world goes from having the massive amount of cases up and to the right to just absolutely demolishing the curve. But South Korea, man, looks like they're making some plays. Italy didn't take it seriously from the start. That's why I believe when news reports spring breakers still have full parties. Unless they implement a strict lockdown, many people will still think it's a meme and don't follow guidelines. Yeah, South Korea jumped on it fast with tons of death. You know what I heard a story about, guys? I heard a story that South Korea had some viral outbreak recently, but they shut it down super quick. And then that like made them get on board. Like it was a few months ago or a year ago, there was some kind of outbreak that happened. And they shut it down. It was some kind of SARS type of thing, and they shut it down. So like they got kind of prepped to the idea of viral outbreaks, and that's why they were so well positioned, because they kind of knew what to do, because they shut it down really quick. I don't know the exact details. I read this one article on about it. Kigo, cheese and rice, dude. 7 months. Golly, at tier 1. Thank you so much, Kigo, man. I hope to see you again at BlizzCon, brother. Are you going this year? BlizzCon 2020? Oh, it might be canceled. Damn. Might be canceled, guys. No BlizzCon. No TBC. Nah, they would do a virtual BlizzCon. Actually, BlizzCon's pretty well positioned because they already have the virtual ticket, right? BlizzCon, they're kind of big brain. That's kind of big brain, man. They got the virtual ticket already set up. They already did it in the past. They're ready. November is too far away. I mean... Seems like even in the most optimistic cases, though, like, we're gonna deal with this for about a year. If I had to guess, like I said, just shooting from the hip. What do you guys think? You think it's gonna be way more than a year, or way less than a year? I mean, I'm trying to be a bloomer about this. Looking at South Korea, I'm trying to think of a best case scenario here, where I still think things are gonna get pretty disjointed for a year. You don't think it's gonna be a year? All right. We don't know what it's going to look like a month from now, let alone 8 months. I mean, there's no way you could be locked down for a year, though. What is the longest you could probably hold out with a lockdown order? Probably at most, tops 6 months. I mean, people are going to run out of food, run out of stuff. Like, they're going to have to go back out.
How are you?
I think I could go about 6 months right now. But it's not going to be the greatest quality of life. I think right now, if I didn't leave again from my house right now, I could go about 6 months. My friend has till May to go to South Korea because it's required you serve in the army. Oh, they're definitely going to put that on pause, though, bro. There's just no way. The economy can't support this lockdown for too long. Yeah, I hear you on that. Max I have with my food is 5-6 months living rough. Yeah, I hear you. I'm kind of in the same boat, BK. I really kind of mapped it all out the other day with like thinking about how much you're going to use per week. I don't know. If I'm trying to be realistic though, I don't think we're going to have to get to that point where you're actually rationing out all the food we've saved up. But I do think it's realistic to think that, you know, the power's going to be on, internet's going to be on, Amazon's going to be delivering. And we just have to shelter in place for 6 months, a year. That's why it's time to buy. I hear you. I mean, I hear you, man. People are saying not to panic buy. I understand why, but at the same time, If I'm being 100% honest with you guys. There's going to be a lot of inflation, right, with all these stimulus. And right now, it's probably super safe comparatively to how it might be in a couple months' time.
Can I help you?
Just trying to be honest here. It probably, you know, right now it's still early innings, as they say. So.
How are ya? You got my attention.
Need alternate options to toilet paper. There isn't a single one to buy in 200 kilometers. You don't need honestly, the best thing you could do, right, Odunka, is buy a bidet on Amazon.
Off with you.
We don't really use bidets here in America, but I'm not weirded out by it. You guys know what a bidet is? A lot of Americans don't even know what it is. It's probably the best strat. Don't even need it, bro. The question is, would you want to predict the future if you had the ability? I think I would. That's a big brain question. I'm also very concerned about the social and psychological impact. They're basically saying mass isolation. Isolation causes issues. It's true, man. It's true. I think a lot of like millennials and stuff that are not us though, because we're classic WoW gamers, we're basically hermits. I think there's some people that might struggle with the whole stay inside. Some people, you know the types, right? Very busybody types. They might be a little rough for them staying inside for this long. They might be getting the cabin fever. Even I get cabin fever from time to time. But
what can I do for you?
You can't say nothing after I asked 3 to 4 times, bro. I genuinely did not see your question.
Sure.
Let me try to find it. Hey, I'm having a hard time picking from Hunter or Warlock. I play solo a lot and want to level fast. The reason why I probably unconsciously, subconsciously skipped over your question, Shadewinds, is that it's basically impossible to recommend someone a class in this game. I get the questions all the time in the chat. People say, what should I play? Unless I know you on a deeply interpersonal level and I know your lifestyle, I know your goals in the game, I know your experience level with the game, I know your playstyle, I know what color you like, I know what your favorite baseball team is, it's pretty rough to recommend someone a class. If I had to right now, let me see. You play solo a lot and want to level fast, and both of them fit that criteria really, really well. Hunter and Warlock, they both level really fast, and if you play, they're very self-reliant as well. I'd also put Mage up in that category as well. Mage is probably the most self-reliant class in the game. It seems very strange to think of it that way, but their whole, you know, infinite value loop with all their Frost package makes them probably the most self-reliant class across all aspects: gold making, leveling, PvP, all of the above. I would, if I had to gun to my head vote for the most self-reliant class, it would be Mage, not the pet classes. Chipotle always has 40 billion napkins. You could use those as TP. It's true. I mean, just get a. I mean, bidets are. And I mean, isn't toilet paper kind of scuffed though, guys? A little bit. Does anybody think that just a little bit? Toilet paper is a little bit suboptimal. I'm kind of getting on board with this bidet train. It seems more sanitary. It seems just kind of just better in every way, unless I'm missing something there. Cargos, are you still doing podcasts during the sickness going around? Oh, yeah. We did GMA, what was it, yesterday? It was yesterday. It was fun. Dude, I love GMA. We're all on the same page. We're going to be more consistent with it. Every Thursday, man. Every Thursday, 11 a.m. PST, we're going to do it. People be lining up for stores for TP like it's Black Friday. Thing is, it's not actually an essential good, though. You can't go hiking with a bidet. No, that's true. That's true. Japanese toilet manufacturers should be looking to score some cheap capital for expansion. There's actually a couple companies that are killing it right now with the bidets. I saw some ads for it already on YouTube. Have you seen any of those YouTube ads? Who's doing really well right now, guys? You know, so there's going to be winners and losers in these big, like, global type of catastrophe type things. Which is there any industries that are just killing it right now? Like creating some Rockefeller, Vanderbilt type wealth? You know, like just really just absolute golden age renaissance of their, you know, business right now? Grocery stores? Kinda true, though. Grocery stores. The gun industry, that's also probably true, yeah. Company called Zoom, that is also very true. Yes, yes, yes. The company I'm working for right now, just, you know, kind of part-time, they use Zoom for everything. I was always a big free conference, or not, what was it called? Uber Conference? You guys know Uber Conference? I love Uber Conference. I'm kind of sad to see it falling out of favor. Everyone's using Zoom these days. I love me some Uber Conference. Postmates, DoorDash, and Grubhub. Big true. Big true. Beer? I know one brand of beer that's probably not doing that well. I don't think you need to be a rocket scientist to figure out what I'm talking about. Twitch streamers? I don't know, man. I mean, it's definitely not the worst job to have in the sense that, you know, you can work remotely and make money through the internet and stuff like that, which is pretty sweet. But on the same note, everybody's kind of freaking out a little bit, and, you know, people are probably less likely to, you know, want to support streamers and stuff like that. I'm not sure. I'm undecided on that. I'm definitely very grateful, though, to have this opportunity in that sense, just because there are people that are very dramatically affected by this stuff, like servers in restaurants, right? Uber drivers. Who are some of the hardest hit on the other side of things, too? Just to get some feedback there. What does death equals delete mean? So if I die, I have to log out and delete this guy instantly. So he has one life. My job just switched to Zoom. Easier to get connected to non-computer people for support. Yeah, I like Zoom. Zoom's pretty cool. Netflix, true. I kind of want to return to that question from earlier, though. At the same time, guys, I am really, really interested about the internet, guys. For real. We got some big brains in here. We got French Tech in here. Who else we got? We got Crusader in here. We got Loretta in here. We got Caligula. We got some big brains in here. I don't understand the internet, guys. In the sense of, what would it take for the internet to go down for, say, me or you? So first question to the hive mind. If your local energy grid goes down, if you get a power outage, is the internet down? Most of the time, this is not a consideration because you don't have power to run your modem. But if you were able to have solar energy, if you're able to have a generator, if you're able to store energy in some form, would your internet be down if you plugged in your modem into a new alternative energy source and it wasn't, you're like basically, you know, off the grid at that point? Super curious. Super curious. Something that I've wondered for many, many moons. Satellite? Thing is, it's not a satellite. Internet's not satellite, though, right? That's legit something I've never thought of. That's what I'm talking about, though. It will be down if your ISP is out of power. True. That's not wrong, right? That's not wrong, right, guys? If your ISP is out of power, you have no internet. Is there another way to get to the internet without that? This is like the juiciest content on the entire internet right now, I'm telling you. I'm telling you. I'm dying to know the answers to these. I would do anything to get these answers right now. Mobile internet. You understand, like your LTE and stuff, right? That would probably be the last internet to fail, though, right? Because those are satellites. Oh, man. Now you got me thinking, man. So the strat is to get some sick mobile internet and then tether? Thing is, you're not able to stream at that point with that type of internet. Your ISP probably won't use their reserves to send out the signal, but rather for their maintenance. Cable companies still need power to provide services, and power supplies only have about 48 hours. Mobile is not satellite. I need some TLDRs, guys. Like, there's a lot of really good feedback here. if your ISP is down, so my ISP is probably like what, Comcast or Xfinity, or you guys have your own ones, they are still dependent on the power grid. Power grid goes down, ISP goes down, therefore you have no internet, correct? Therefore, that seems reasonably within the realm of possibility. That doesn't seem too tinfoil hat. That seems like something that could happen, possibly. Mobile internet has like 2 gigabytes data cap, even though you're throttled for like 20 kilobytes a second. You can get the unlimited though, right? The unlimited data. Cell phone will work for a bit. But the likelihood, realistically, that your energy company goes down, or like that the grid goes down, like the power source goes down, as long as the power source is up, you should be fine. Like, you should have internet, because the ISP will likely be up. There's a niche, there's a niche thing here, though. There's a niche thing here that I could see actually happening, right? So, for whatever reason, this could happen to any one of us, our local transformer box, which is the little, I don't know, little gray box that's up on the pole, blows up. Happens all the time, and they have to send out a crew to fix it. And the internet is down for a couple days because they're sending out a crew because it's more stressed. Everyone people have these issues. So during that time, the ISP is still up, the grid is still up. You just personally don't have power. In that scenario, if you were to route some power through a generator or through solar panels to your modem, you would still have internet, correct? Yes, correct. One person says yes, correct. This chat's gone a bit depressive. This is the turning point. This is one thing I want to comment on, and I want to understand for my own self too. When I talk about this type of stuff, I literally am not thinking about it from like a depressive mindset. It's almost from like a theory crafting mindset. I'm not even trying to be depressing right now. I think this is the genesis, the root of why most people will leave at this point and like not want to watch the stream, because this type of talk seems depressing. But to me, it doesn't even register that this is depressing. It's more of just like knowing, like just preparedness type of stuff. But yeah, we can switch gears. I appreciate the feedback. It's better than it not being out there. I genuinely think about this type of stuff not from a depressing way. It's just purely out of like preparedness moving forward, you know? It's like, you know, the if you fail to plan, or what is it? Oh shit, I'm fighting an ice claw bear. Hold up. Okay, I don't want to melee this guy. Do not melee this guy. I have no potion. If I melee this guy, I keep him leashed, I die. Okay, we're fine. We are fine. Yeah, failing to plan is planning to fail, right? Yeah. Prior planning and preparation prevents piss poor performance. There it is. There it is. Yo, Cargos Bite, have you seen the movie Upgrade? I just watched it with the wifey and I highly recommend it. No, I'll check it out. What is it, on Netflix? It's not depressive, yeah. I mean, it's a mixed bag, right? But I think I figured it out. I think I got the gist of it. So that's a really good case to have like a generator or something, right? Because you can still have internet when the power's down. Pretty sweet. You just gotta have some way to get power, and you could probably get internet from your car. How insane is that? Humongous brand right there. You can use your car as a generator, and you know, just run some cords to your modem, and then you get the modem. Then you can use your mobile device and charge your mobile device in your car and get internet. There it is, folks. Pretty sure that's gonna work. And most people are gonna be able to execute on that strategy. Power goes out, transformer blows out, hop in the car, run a power cord to the modem, turn it on, charge your phone in the car, bam. There it is. Yeah, you can get the internet from your phone, but it's not like, you know, you can't like stream from it. Like, you could stream from a phone with your real internet, or you could you know, watch Netflix comfortably and not use up all your data or something like that. I see that as a real, you know, useful thing to keep in mind. Big into using your car as a generator, especially because I haven't done it personally, but I'm just, you know, I'm just thinking about what strats you have in the wheelhouse. Someone in my guild raided from their car for a few weeks? Why is that? Yo, what's up, Tyler? Yeah, man, we're Alliance. Yo. Watched The Rain on Netflix. I just finished it shortly before all this stuff started and was just like, wow. The Rain? Okay. I'm down with some Netflix. If you have a generator, you will maintain your internet and everything in your home. Nothing will change except the power source. The thing is, that may not be the play though, Sir Bucket Man, because if you just run your generator, you're gonna eat up. Like, I was looking into how long, you know, a propane tank or propane tank would run a generator for. So, well, I know a gallon of gas will run it for 8 hours. They're saying that sounds a little sketchy though. A gallon of gas run a generator for 8 hours. Like a full propane barbecue tank run, let's say, like an 8,000 watt generator. I'm guessing it's probably for no more than 12 hours, if I had to guess. So do you really want to run your whole house? I would probably just use it to just put just enough juice in the fridge to like keep it on, keep all the perishables like consumable, and then run power just to like critical things like the modem or something. I don't know, because I feel like you would just tear through all your reserves. Oh, solar panels would be huge. I wish I was big enough brain to pull the trigger there. Definitely don't run the washing machine or dryer. Another thing you don't run is the coffee maker. I said that yesterday on stream. The coffee maker eats up more energy than your fridge. That is just absurd. You need a generator that feeds into a natural gas line. Adam, that is the largest brain thing I've heard in a minute. That's huge. Yeah, I wish. See, shoulda, woulda, coulda, man. The people that were like thinking about this stuff, big brain, like way beforehand, they're chilling right now. Clean, bro, dude. Natural gas line right in the generator. Man, oh man. Monstrous brain strat right there. What a trip. Yeah, it eats up like 1,300 watts. And a fridge is like 800 watts.
What can I do for you?
That's what I'm saying. That's why you gotta make a coffee in the kettle if you're gonna see, this is why I want to have the channel, right? This other channel, so we can talk about this type of stuff. And I'm doing it right now, but I can't help myself.
Well met.
Can't help it.
Be good.
All right, I need one more crack war rib. Let me just get that real quick. That is one thing I love about Ontario. Loads and loads of natural gas here. That's what's up, dude. If a server TP X for TP as an ally, what? If a server to looking for a server to X for to as ally. All right, I got there. As ally, I mean, I'm gonna give you the generic answers, brother. Incendious, Grabulous, maybe even Fairlina. It seems like they're having a pretty decent time over there. I'd be cautious about Fairlina though. May not be the experience you're looking for. I mean, some good people play over there, like Quissy plays on there and stuff. Anybody playing Fairlina? How is it? Yeah, Incendious, Grabulous, Fairlina. These are servers with like decent, you know, pop ratios, stuff like that. People love it. If I had to server transfer to one thing right now, knowing what I know now about RP servers, and it would definitely be Grabulous. Grabulous seems sick. I was looking at Herod. That was one of the original, man. I think Grabulous is the play. Get that RP vibes. Coffee in a kettle made over an open fire is peak survival mode. You're not wrong. Imagine sitting in an underground bunker stocked on food playing WoW off your massive generator. Yo, that's kind of hashtag goals for me. One more drink. I'm not there right now, but someone's doing that right now, and they feel like they have the largest brain in the class right now. And just chilling in their bunker, in their fortified safe room. Incendious is the play for competitiveness. It seems like that. There's some really good strong guilds on there. Are you on Incendious, French? Are you EU? French, where are you from again? I should know this. Bloodsail Buccaneers. Bloodsail Buccaneers is fire though, right? Like, I still have yet to receive any feedback that people don't like the server. The server is so cozy, it's unbelievable. It has my pick for the coziest server. I mean, you want proof? You want proof that